Hello, good morning, everyone. Welcome back to the Monday Morning Murder Podcast, here to discuss Yellowjackets live, episode 7. And this was a really great episode titled Burial. And we are going to talk about all the fun details, all of the symbolism. There was so much going on in this episode. It was crazy. From start to finish. um, I've heard a lot of people talking about, saying this is the best episode of Yellow Jackets so far. So,
I
um,
yeah.
yeah,
I was
good.
honestly like I was like, what did I just watch? This
Mhm.
it blew my mind. And I
Mhm.
know that some of the parts are getting a little bit of hate, but I just think that it's because they're not quite citizen detectives like we are and they're not making the connections that we are. But if you
Mhm.
are reading and if you've been following us and you've been in our dive deeps about all the symbolism, all the young, all of the dark night of the soul and everything we have, there is like so much in what we got from what I want to call the waking characters. Um, they're not really the dark, but like their dreams or their calls, I guess. And I mean, this is going to be we got buried in in a lot of symbolism, literally. But
Mhm.
talk to me, Faye. What's going on?
Oh, nothing. I am so excited to be here to chat about this. Yeah, I've had so many ideas and I've got like 5 essays open where I'm just like, okay, what do I want to write about this? What do I want to write? And then, of course, Mandy and I, we have like I think I said
We have like
18
30,
pages
really.
of notes. And just a ton of photos to go through. We may not get to all of the photos and everything, but yeah, there was just so much going on. So let's bring up, let's
Yeah, I
see.
mean, if you're not in a rush, I'm not in a rush. And also, we got to say hello to our citizen detectives and Yellow Jacket enthusiasts. What's going on, chat? We have a little poll going too recently on Fire on the website on YouTube. If you haven't logged it yet, check it out. What's the poll? We want to know what happened to Crystal's body. I have a theory on it, and we're going to talk about it later. But let's go. If you haven't voted yet, get it in there.
Yeah, if you haven't voted, the poll is still live and we will go over the results probably about halfway through the stream and just kind of see what you guys all thought. What
Mhm.
happened to Crystal/Kristen? Um, okay, so I I had to include a goat in our cover photo
Yes.
because
Did you lose
the
your
goat,
goat?
yes,
Yeah, you
Bruce.
found it.
Yes, exactly. I lost my goat for a little while, but then I found it again. I just love that. She's so sweet.
Well, we definitely saw their archetypes coming out hardcore
Mhm,
in the whole scene, in the whole episode, because they're really owning like their characters about like just denying their shadow work. And Shauna, and I mean, Van and Ty, they just the responses, their lines, the script, perfect on
mhm.
what we've been expecting for them. Some of the things, the resisting parts, seeing them group, and man, like, hello, is this not? You thought you were excited about the reunion in season one? Nah, this is the reunion, and not only is
Mhm.
it the reunion, this is now the 11 o'clock reunion, and I want to talk about the 11 o'clock because one, let's talk about 1111 symbolism there with numerology and the mystic number and calling to spirits. Number two, if you are a musical person or if you are a person who is like in theater Broadway, 11 o'clock reference is about, so it's actually the time of where the second act begins. It's the time where the main character usually sings the song or whatever it is that is a transition or that awakening part in that main character. And guess what we're getting now? We are now in part act two. And right away, they gave it to us with the theme song change.
Great
You want to
catch,
go on that,
Mandy.
Faye?
I love that. That's a great catch. These are the things that sneak into the notes after I've gone to bed. No, I love that. That's gorgeous. That's gorgeous, darling. Okay, let me pull up my notes here. Um, so let's talk about. So this episode 207, was directed by Anya Adams. And just to support, the WGA strike, we're just going to call out our writers on this episode. So we had Ashley Lyle and Bart Nickerson, which of course are show creators, Rich Monahan, Liz Fang, Karen Joseph Adcock, Rich Monahan, and Elise Brown. So shout out to all of those fantastic writers. I love it. I've noticed that they use different writers on each episode, and I think that a lot of that is to just keep things secretive, so that nobody knows too much. So we're not the only people that are citizen detectiving over here.
Oh yeah, definitely. And then the whole choreography scene, and I actually just watched that last night because I
Mhm.
watch it streaming and I don't get that second bit until it produces live, that behind the scenes value. And man, what they did with Caligula's outfit, and they gave us the back behind the scenes on that and choreography, and it was just really cool for me.
So cool.
And yeah,
The whole
I also
Caligula, yeah, like that was
yeah.
so unique, and it could have gone wrong in so many ways. I
Mhm.
am not a person who likes musical numbers that much. I mean, unless I know what I'm getting into, I just don't. I don't.
What?
I just don't. You know what? It drives me nuts sometimes. And it's like if you're not expecting it, or if that's not like what you're going into it for, then, yeah, I'm not usually a fan, but this came off so well. They did such a great job because it was just so weird and
Mm.
perfect, and Caligula just
It,
his
it's
out
the
his
mind
outfit.
of a psychopath,
Yeah.
literally. And it's the mind of a murderer,
Or
psychopath killer.
she's just a sweetheart. There's that too, where she's just
Well,
like
that's
she's innocent in her mind, because that whole thing
mm,
was like her bird, who is like apparently her only confidant, where it's the only person where she can go,
mm.
or the only creature she can go to and say, um, do people really think that I'm just desperate for love, or what she said. Um and, she
Caligula.
doesn't have like none of the other girls. And we even see that in that scene with her and Shauna, where, she's done something. She's like, I'm the only person that took, your killing with the seriousness that it required. And it's not like Shauna, gave her any special treatment. She didn't thank her for that. It's not like she was like, wow, this person is really loyal. This is a good friend. Maybe I should, give her a little more credit where credit is due, kind of thing. Um,
Mhm.
but that's how it always goes with Misty, where she just, so all she's left with is Caligula, and then yeah, it leads her to this awakening, as you said, where she's like, oh my god, I love Walter. And I mean, to be clear, she and Walter are, a match made in heaven, but we have to wonder about his motivations and what he's really, up to. And is he
Yeah.
genuine, or is he, just as crazy as she is?
For sure. And the thing about okay, so the thing about that is if you're watching me, I have a theory that that is her inner ego, her inside voice that is talking to her. And honestly, I kind of was thinking about this weekend, maybe Walter could be symbolic of actual Hermes, like, because the whole energy of the show is trickster energy. We have all the horned animals, we have, the horn gods, we have all of these different things that we can relate them to, all these archetypes, hermeticism, I like to say, but it's more, it's honestly more, I think, more of the trickster energy, and a lot of the mythology was given us to us in this. And I've been reading also about the like Native American trickster energy, where they had the wolf or the coyote, and then they had the crow, and then they also had the thunderbird. So Misty and Caligula are giving me those kind of vibes here. And if you're aware of that, they've always been kind of, the coyote beats the thunderbird. But in in the symbolism, there's so much to it, because the trickster can be good, it can be bad, you can be the protagonist, the antagonist. There's so much, and that's the part of them diving in deep into the dreams and where we're going to get this darkness. And in season 1, Lottie says, let the darkness embrace us, and here we are now. The music changed, we're in a dream tone, and if you saw the music too, it had chimes, it had a ethereal and a ethereal type of state, the void, the dream, what are we doing, kind of waking things. It reminded me, I got a lot of stuff in here too about like wasteland, like I'm feeling surreal with this whole thing. And I love where they're going and the little nods that they just put in there for now. So I want you guys to think about or get on, start Googling, diving, and get onto the coyote trickster energy and see like some more Native American animalistic type
Oh,
vibes.
well, we'll probably save it for later, but
Mhm.
Mandy had she found a really she had a great revelation about Van, and um so we'll talk about that when we get to Van, because I do want to spend. I know
Yeah.
last week we kind of rushed through Van and Ty, and I do want to spend some time talking about them today because I've had a lot of ideas and thoughts about them, and everything that's going on. But we're gonna save them. We're gonna try and do Lottie, Misty, and Coach in kind of the first half, and then we'll do Ty and Van and the fight and all of that fun stuff in the second half. So
Mhm.
let's catch up with the chat here. Thank you so much, Yasi. Yes, we had a lovely Mother's Day, and thank you so much for being here with us.
Yeah. I did
We really
absolutely.
appreciate
Like I just told my husband, leave me alone. I don't want to do anything. And like I did
it.
nothing and he took the kid and I was like just vibe, chill out with me. And I just like locked myself in my room and the hermit in me.
My
And
husband
like that
was
was the happiest I've been. Like I really enjoy it. Like I was just diving deep in some of your suggestions for mythology this week. So
oh, thank you.
and also the horn god. So the funny thing about the trickster energy and Hermes, or if you want to call it Hell or Hades, kind of well Hermes and Hades, but it's the thing about or Charon, the passaging up to the underworld, and there's a lot of underworld gods that can take us there. And if you've been following, we have the sun and moon symbolism, we have the polarity, we have all of this going together, which is the point. And then we have the realm of three, the high realm, the world tree, which where they are, and then the underworld. And we to get to the fourth level is that coming of all oneself. Coming to if you want to mix with Carl Jung, you want to mix your inner ego, your subconscious mind. Um, it's all getting there, and like this is, this is gonna be, it's just gonna be amazing. And I think that we need to like, okay, where am I? Sorry, go ahead.
I love
I lost in my notes. Okay.
That's okay. We have so many. I don't even know how we're supposed to even look at them. But I love what Mrs. Duncan the Tall says here. She says, disclaimer, I love Misty, but that conversation with Caligula was very reaffirming on the belief the closer identity was a good thing, so much as to portray the OG Caligula as the misunderstood good. Well, he's take it from a bird who's named after a Roman emperor who was, what did
So
they say?
yeah.
Who was unjustly accused of things. But no,
Are we
I
just gonna
loved
start
that.
with Misty since we're already here? Let's just
Yeah, we
you
might
wanna
as well.
okay.
I loved that
So
because there was an interview like I think maybe right at the beginning of the season, and Christina Ricci, she goes on a little rant where she's like, well, Caligula, the emperor, was misunderstood. He was actually
yeah.
a really great emperor, and they are unearthing, information even now. Yada, yada.
hmm
And I just love it because she's like, her and her bird are like, do not
Well,
even try to come between
and
them.
she also is very gray, and there's like the gray in mythology, the gray periods, the gray people, the gray of the mind. She's always um she's such an interesting character because what I noticed about her is she manipulates the narrative. She's she's her own show, and which when you're talking about this is where I was going, the trickster energy. So you have the trickster, and then you have the clown, who's always kind of acting, and then the plays, and then medieval times, and all these things. So they always had the opposites of each other. You had to have one with the other, and the clown is somebody who just mask and acts themselves. All of her life is an act, all her narratives, everything she does is a performance. And I don't think she really gets to understand the true her. And the whole thing when she calls Walter after, like, I don't know if he is real. Like, I don't know if he's just her inner self, because when she's like, oh, you hang up, oh, you hang up, oh, you hang up, is she talking to herself? Really? Is she having self dialogue, or is she just acting? Like, it's kind of a moment of realness with it. And I really enjoyed that because it makes me think it's that trickster energy, which is like, by the way, the trickster appears as deers, antelopes, things like that. So bears, horned bears. Oh, I can't hear you, Faye. I can't hear you, Faye. You're muted. I think you've been muted.
I'm so sorry.
I'm over here pressing buttons. I'm like, hold on, is there something wrong with my audio?
You.
I think
I'm
you've
so
been muted for
sorry.
like the past minute
30
or two. To
seconds.
be honest, no,
I'm
like
so
two
sorry, you
minutes.
guys.
To be honest, I don't think we heard any of that.
No, I don't think you did either. Okay, so
No, none of it.
Yasi says the other maternal thing I thought you guys could talk about is how the babies have always been treated as someone else's joy and property until a tragedy happens, and then suddenly it's no one's problem but mom's. And I really like this because, we kind of get a hint to that idea with Lottie when she's saying our baby,
Yeah.
when before the baby's born, and then, but there is like this, well, we're going to talk about the fight and everything, but I do want to say, in the beginning of the episode when they're first getting into it, yeah.
I know, I got to show off my new gear. Sorry.
Yeah, she got
like,
her.
I forgot about it, and I was so
Leatherman.
excited talking, and I'm like, I totally forgot that I got it. Hey.
Yeah, fellow jacket.
Just get ready for dead ass Jackie soon.
You guys aren't ready for Mandy's cosplay. You don't even know. But anyway, so yeah, so we saw that, in the beginning of the episode that they, Shauna's sitting there, she's holding the baby, and there's a lot to that. And I have so much to say, but anyways, but I think it's very notable that, the door was frozen shut. So they've all been trapped in that house, in the cabin together since the birth. And, Shauna's still holding on to the dead baby, which, I mean, may have not gotten to the point where he's like stinking or anything yet, but it's still like pretty tragic that they're all trapped in there, because there are going to be other smells from all, just the horrific labor that she had gone through, blood and all of that. They hadn't even cleaned up the bed. She was still like laying there on the bloody blankets and stuff. So I think that, there's something to be said, like they're all trapped in there in that sort of horror. There was no escape. You can't even crack the window.
Let's save the Shauna deep for when we get to Shauna, but I definitely agree with you. I think that there's also something in the doorway, because a lot of conversations you see, like Jackie and Shauna, when they were being real, they're in the doorway between the closet. You see a lot of doorway.
Good point.
Like, and am I coming in? Am I going to let you in? Am I not? We get another doorway reference with Lottie later I'll bring up. But I think that moving forward, like citizen detectives, we need to watch and pay more attention to the doorway scenes. And this is, again, us going to deeper parts of our mind. Is it us opening up our subconscious? Is it us being new? But the good thing about it is that at this point, we actually just had a breath of fresh air, a moment of hope for them. The snow stopped. And you know who notices that? Lottie. And that's what's most important about this, because now that Lottie's being buried, let's just say, because she was leading, but now in the future, Nat is taking over. And remember, in Doom Coming, Lottie and Nat have similar crowns, right? And everyone else has different stuff. And we've already said Lottie and Nat are the sun and moon. But now, and I really feel like this is Lottie's death, and she's going to becoming more of that shamanistic character. But Lottie does notice that it stops, and at the end of the episode, guess what? They're dancing. It starts to snow again, and it's
Yeah, and
symbolic
there's
because, well, Doom coming, the same thing happened as they were dancing, which is also symbolic of like the rain dances and the sun dances of the tribes, also dancing in the underworld, like opening up these portals. They're dancing to connect, and then the spirit comes. And that was happening in Doom Coming for Lottie, and now it's happening
so
for
what
Nat.
they also with the storm, Shauna, she's out there, she's trapped in it, and we talked about last week, I told you guys about Zagreus, and he is the child of Zeus and Persephone. And and that was part of Shauna's vision that she had. The the group cannibalizing her child, that is from that mythology. Just like we saw the Bacchanal scene, and that's from Dionysian. Zagreus is the first incarnation of Dionysus. And what was I going to say here? Oh, so Zagreus, he is a storm god. Zeus is a sky god. So Zagreus, his child, is a storm god. He holds lightning bolts. He brings the storm. And also Zeus was so wrathful after after he was cannibalized by the Titans, he brought a great storm, and he was throwing lightning bolts at the Titans and just, annihilating them, disintegrating, or whatever, what's the word I'm trying to think of, where he's just incinerating them, and all of this. And so I've had this idea also, the death of Zagreus along, coinciding with that storm was like also really interesting, because Shauna goes into labor. But then later, once they are all coming back together and they're sort of re-examining the old wounds, they're like, Nat says, what do you guys really remember from out there? But it's like, if you're asked, that's not the right way to frame that question, because it should be like, what, like, yeah, I don't know. It's just like, you're not going to realize what you've forgotten. And so it was kind of a trick question, a trickster question, where it's like, what do you guys actually remember? Because that could be like, well, I remember Shauna had a baby out there and it died. I remember Shauna beat the shit out of Lottie, all these little things that who knows if the other person may have blocked it out. And Shauna even says, if there's things that I've blocked out, then I don't want to know, kind of thing.
Yeah, and they go around with that, and like I said, their answers are, but also that unblocking is symbolic of going to the underworld, because a lot of times they don't remember stuff, or if they die and they have these moments. But the whole thing, like with all of them together, let's just start like with the group. You know, they're all coming. Ty's like, "Hey, did you guys join a cult, really?" And Nat just again, she is now she's the queen now. She's the queen bee. And the thing, and I also was reading over this weekend that there in mythology there was like a shadow that the trickster leaves a shadow, and it's different for everyone. And it's so cool that I don't know where it is right now because there's stuff all over, but I just wanted to mention that because like we see that. Oh, here, okay, I'll read that.
Yeah,
sometimes burial.
Yeah, read that through, Mandy.
Okay. Sometimes the best therapy is cranking the hits to 11. So today we're exploring the hardcore kid care revival movement. 11 o'clock, theatrical birdcore numbers, some late hits of the I can't read it. Of the renovative era. Call us about a spin-off, HGTV. Flower duets and a classic live record. Out in the wilderness, Coach Scott does a great Carl Havoc impression for an unimpressed Missy. Hey, Havoc. Walt Havisham.
Oh, really good point. Havisham, Walt Havisham.
Havoc.
That's our, you know what? That's our nickname. That's our hashtag.
That is our
Yellowjackets.
hashtag. We've got like 4 people on it. We need y'all to be on it. It's on Twitter. Anyway,
hashtag Walt Havisham.
So let's bring this up. Our phones keep us captive to other people's priorities. And
so
this whole episode, though, notice the theme of calling. How many phone calls do we get? And when they have given up their possessions, and now that Nat's in charge, well, not really. I mean, it's Lottie's tribe, right? We're in the hive of Lottie and her heliotrope tribe, and all the living members are there. And baby, we're going for a gold. The Golden State, New Jersey Yellowjackets, digging the mine of the soul and consciousness for that gold. But so going to Cherry Corners, New York. Also, let's note it. There's no specific Cherry Corners. There's always several cherry towns, and all within a couple. But it's also that trickster energy going in.
Yeah, great point. Yeah, there's a lot going on with the group getting together, and then even like what's driving them together. Even the fact that Misty kind of goes on a little spiel of like introducing. Sorry, I'm trying to skip forward to
no, well, but I have to say though,
she spends the time like, oh, let me tell you about my new boyfriend, kind of thing, and the girls are like, oh, tell us about him. And I was sitting there, I was waiting to see if they might, if she might say something that sort of, if she was going to say, oh, well, he was in an accident and he had a head injury, or he, something indicative of him specifically. But she says, oh, he doesn't have a job. He just he's in pursuit of his passion of
Hermeticism.
Yeah. And so
which also Odin. I'm sorry, Odin was also in pursuit of the knowledge, and Odin is a Hermes figure, trickster energy. So good sorry, point. Go ahead.
Yeah. But it's so, yeah, and that's kind of what it all comes down to. With Walter, we have suspicions that he might be pulling some strings. Why did he seek out Misty? What's the motivation there? So yeah, Walter is a mystery, but I love that they're bringing him back. And I am concerned. I talked about this before, where I was like, I feel like Coach and Walter are on a similar trajectory. So whatever happens with one is going to be the same thing that's happening with the other. Just because I feel like the whole thing with Coach, with younger Misty, is such a learning experience for her, especially in the fact that he like toyed with her. He played games with her. He pretended he had feelings for her. And then it backfired. And Misty hasn't really, I mean, yeah, she's crazy. She poisoned him and all of this, but she hasn't like reacted much to that. I don't know. I mean, I guess I've never like poisoned a boyfriend to like try and make him, hold him hostage or anything. But like, usually there's a bit of a reaction, especially if you found out that somebody betrayed you. And I guess maybe because he's gay, she's like, okay, well, maybe she's letting it pass for that reason. But also, I don't know. It's just a little funny. I just have my suspicions that, about what's going to happen between the two of them. And now they have a different kind of bond, which is interesting. But I did like seeing Coach, sort of give her that empathy. Right.
Yeah. So Coach, okay, well, let's just like cut it back to Misty from the beginning. We have to, because you like skipped ahead of all our notes here. But like, okay, so Misty in this whole thing with her call and coming to it, and I think a lot of this episode was focused on Misty, the realization that, hey, you are psychopathic, and they're getting into this. The first thing she does is she makes everyone give all their possessions, give their phones. She's the one that says your phone makes you the reflection. Misty's always a people pleaser. She's always searching for someone else, but never herself. And if you notice from the beginning, she's Coach Ben, Crystal, everybody. She's even looking for the goat, Bruce. She's every episode I've been rewatching. She's looking for somebody other than her, which is very interesting, I thought. But they come together and they're doing this, and there's just like this whole so the water, okay, so part of the thing she says there is like water coffin, which is another burial thing, which and this whole thing, we're getting so many things about wrong burials, who wasn't buried, which we'll get to. But this, one of her first things is like, okay, so I know my soul holds the wisdom of ages, but I'm gonna be like, she already knows everything. She doesn't want to hear it. And Shauna too. But the difference between them is like Missy's open and fun and enjoying it, and Shauna's like, oh, you're idiots. I know better than you. And she's like an internal depth, which is like super Hermes and because they don't want to talk. Whereas Misty's the clown version because she's portraying it and talking nonstop. I don't know who else is like that, but anyway. Uh, so I thought, this was guidance, and I'm going to be in the dark all by myself. First off, I'd freak the hell out if I had to be in some dark, but these float things are really cool. But when she goes through and she starts getting it, first off, Christina Ricci, body yaddy yaddy girl, you did not just have a baby. Hello, you look great. Okay, and then the birth is similar to a womb. Yes, you're right. There was but anyway, she's Lisa here, who I think is also the voice of reason, like Walter. The most authentic guidance comes from within, and yeah, she's like the soul holds the wisdom of the ages, and this is the thing is like we're getting the words authentic self, authentic guidance so many times here, and here she is, a creature of habit. She knows everything. She's trying to get out of all the therapies. Lisa, you haven't even been to any therapies,
Well, I think Misty, she's like so in control all the time. She's such a control freak. She has to be in charge of everything.
Yeah.
Even when it came to helping Shauna, she was the one that was like, that knew what to do. And Shauna, like, kind of hates on her for that. She's like, excuse me, your hobby seems to be becoming the perfect serial killer. But I think that there's a lot to be said with Misty's, she's a control freak. She's so in control that she doesn't even realize her own feelings, like when it comes to Walter. And she had to do this sort of internal thing. And I love what Joe says here. The water bath is also similar to a womb. And yes, water is healing. Water is life-giving. Water is like, the birthing waters, and it's feminine and all of that. And Lottie has, obviously a lot of water association in her older self. She's there as like the priestess at the lake. She's sort of a lady of the lake energy. And ever since this whole season, they had a quick shot of this of Misty in the water tank in the trailer, and I've always I've been like, oh, that's Lady of the Lake imagery right there. Like Misty is ascending. This is a step up because she has to look inside, and she's literally forced. She's locked in the water coffin, because she is very
I think she's very air.
If she can control every aspect of things, then she will not be subject to things. And that probably is part of her experience with Coach, because in that she was so emotionally driven and she let her emotions, play the cards. And I think she learned from that, because she also was made a fool by that, in front of all the other girls. She's like, oh, me and Coach Scott have this little secret thing, and then turns around and really bites her in the butt. And that was probably really embarrassing, but she also learned a lot from that, and she became very guarded from that. Between that and the situation with Crystal, she had to learn to be very, very guarded with all of her emotions and just her internal, like, just the way she is, just her natural instincts that she displays. Everyone can see it from a mile away. Misty, you're crazy. You're a psycho. You're a serial killer, except for her, and she feels like she's got it together. She feels like she's well put together. So I love this, that she's going through sort of this healing in the water. And yes, Joe, a parallel between Misty's involvement with Shauna's birth in the previous episode, and in that, with that in mind, with the birthing process, with the placenta having come out, the amniotic sac had burst or what have you. She the waters weren't there. There were no healing waters. And so it's almost like, is that symbolism? Is that symbolic that all this pain that happened, and even we see at the end of the episode when Shauna punches Misty, all that pain has just been being held onto. There were no cleansing waters for them. So I just think it was really interesting. A lot of symbolism with that.
So I think since we're talking about the elements, I honestly feel like Misty's air, and I think each of them portray an essential element. And then like the ether, there's the void. They have said that the elements together and then the fifth element is like the spiritual realm. And so I feel like that she's air and now she's having to subject herself to water. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because she's had a lot of stuff with that. She tiptoes, dances on graves, she don't give a fuck. She sits right down.
That's a good point. I think that maybe that's part of like each of them, their ascension also, is that they have to
Mm-hmm.
immerse themselves in another
Yeah.
like element, right? Because we see
Yes.
like Shauna, Shauna is definitely earth mother energy, but she became fire in this
I think.
episode. Lottie
Yeah.
is so water based, but she became
No, I think
I don't even
I think
know.
Lottie's the higher element. Lottie's the ether, or the
You
other
think she's
element.
consistent?
Yes, because honestly, like I know if you followed, I think she's on the shamanistic route and she's like a step ahead of everyone. She's the seer. She's the one who knows. She feels the earth moving in her feet. She can feel it, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
And she has that. And each of them, so like the alchemists and dealing for gold, and if you want to connect this back to ancient occultic wisdom, the ancient wisdom of the elements, putting it together, and also maybe the triangle, because the triangle and the symbol, we can put the line, or we can do however, we can turn it this way, that way. But when the dash with the horizontal means it's the realms open for you to travel the world, or to go from vibe to vibe, whatever. But I think that each of them do have that thing they're connecting with. And I feel like the fire is now Shauna's connecting, but if initially she might have been like more earth, like you said, the earth mother.
Yeah, she's definitely Earth Mother. I have so much to say about that. I'm going to like write its
Mm-hmm.
own essay. Only me too. But yeah, I think that we're on to something like with
Yeah.
Misty, and it's a
Well,
strange.
the truth is all around you.
Well, she could be at a point where she could ascend and heal, and hopefully she will, but her natural instincts have always sort of been lower vibrational, when why
She's
also,
pushed.
let's
Yeah,
talk
she
about,
denies
okay,
it.
so she makes her phone call to Walter and she says something like, oh well, what you said, yeah, you were right about what you said, or something like that. So is that her admitting to him that she's a serial K word? I can't
Yeah,
be
she
sort
did.
of
No, she
sensitive
did,
about
but she did
that.
it in code. In just how Walter text Morse coded her, they
And
did
he's
it
like,
in
oh, or
code.
she says, your grandmother sounds so cool. Like, I really think she was admitting to him the truth. And that's crazy. That's really interesting because we've all suspected that the whole time since episode 1. We've been suspecting that since she was out on the date with that guy and she's like, oh, I love muscular calves and all of this. Yeah, Misty's been the one where like, is she still doing that? And with her whole like apartment she has downstairs from her house, and the way she took Jessica Roberts and all of this. So I think
Well,
she
and
she did. She
yeah,
made that omission.
I really think that she is going to end up being like, I have this theory that I'm working on about the box, and how the soul and the ego and the box, and there's a box of yourself and hermeticism and the triangle and the great sacred things. But I think that Misty is going to be the last one to fully transform, and at the end, she will finally admit to the box. And the thing about the 11 o'clock number too, it's like it's it's different. It's not the final number, but it's considered like that revelation change of a heart. You know, there's no there's not really exception. It's a moment of change. And right now they're changing. And then the thing about Misty too is that, she's admitting to these things, but also she doesn't see them as good or bad. She sees them as like, oh, it's fine. It just is. But she's also not paying attention. She's losing herself. Like we end up, she didn't bury the body right. She didn't, she kind of over talks, over clowns her lies. She over clowns her narrative, her manipulative narrative, or she's writing a play. She's writing her own script, and then she ends up killing herself. She's her own worst enemy in this whole thing, and all she wants is to be loved. But at the same time, she's just she's just living this grandiose thing she's doing. So, and I don't know, I love also her finding Crystal. That whole moment, Crystal, Crystal, she's so dramatic. Where is it? Is she real? Like, is she gonna have? Like, we need to find Crystal, my friend. And then she goes off to Mari and Akila, and I've noticed that her, Mari, and Akila have a lot of common scenes together. Those three are always kind of paired together versus Ty and Van. And maybe there's something into the threes, and maybe the Ty, Van, and Tree Ty is another three. And then, so she goes there and she says, like, she's going to turn back down. She's like, oh, well, what if Crystal has this song in her voice and I can't have it? And she's just so dramatic.
She really goes over the top with it. It is kind of interesting, and you can almost get this sense that Misty is really laying it on thick with her like acting skills, because if we remember, the very last thing Crystal said to her was, "You're not a very good actress." And I think that like is going to just haunt Misty. And so we see, she's really testing her chops, right? She does she's like, we need to go find Crystal, after she overhears the girls talking. We need to go find her, yada yada. And then when she goes out with them, she sort of lays it on extra thick. And then once she comes face to face with Coach, she's really trying there, but it's that moment where she actually breaks down and she cries and she's like, I'm sorry, I tried so hard with the baby. And that's like that real Misty is in there.
And Akila's like, okay, Misty. And then Mari's like, I'm not here for your shit. I see right through you, girl. Mari's always calling her out. So I think that there's going to be some big thing too between them.
Well, and I think like Misty, she's not like remorseless. Like, I think she does have, a sense of remorse, but I don't know. It's an interesting thing to explore, because I do think she is genuinely like distraught and upset about what happened to Crystal. Like, that was her best friend, and she didn't really have a chance to process it before she kind of had to just come back and help Shauna with the baby. And so, it's just a lot of, I don't know. Yeah, it's a lot with Misty. That's a good chance to explore what, what her real, her real humanity side is. But it may just be that she, again, like knowing that like the effect of honesty, her own honesty had upon her relationship with Crystal, then how Crystal died, like it may just be she's taking all of that, any like exposure of humanity, of feeling of her, anything like that, and just locked it away. She's like, because the one time I did that, it just did not go well.
She literally like is in her own little airy mood. She tiptoes to the tulips, like she's dancing, like she's playing drums, like she's kind of like, she's really air. And then also when like the whole her and Shauna narrative, let's skip at that before we talk about Coach, because I feel like Coach is a little bit deeper. So let's see. I said adult Shauna. So Shauna's purse. Oh, the goat stuff. No, that's you. Oh, the whole I've got some bait. How, of course, Misty's hoarding food in case she's hungry. Like, she hoarded the mushrooms. Like, she hides and hoards all this stuff. She's like, oh, in case they, put a calorie restriction or they try to keep our food from us.
To induce visions or whatever.
And then, she's like, hey, shouldn't you be in therapy? The goats chewed through the damn rope. She's like, oh, I've got some bait, what's his name? Bruce. Oh, I can't believe this. And Lottie's goons are just going to take him. And I think Shauna's like breaking down so bad. Missy's defending herself here finally, because like Shauna's very deflective with Jeff, with everything. We even with her and Jeff last season, when she's coming out like about hiding secret. When did we become secrets? He's like, you have a whole lock of them in your room. Like, what are you talking about? She's like, why didn't you tell me about the store? Well, Jeff's like, are you kidding me? You just told me you were cheating and all this stuff, and there's no book club. Well, guess what? There's book club here. But anyway, she just doesn't see it, and she's so another person, and she's demanding for that gratefulness, she's demanding for the respects. um
They're a good like like a foil of one another because they seem very much alike, but Shauna is being forced to face her demons because she has loved ones around her. She has a husband, she has a daughter, and they are going to force her to take a deeper look at her things she's done, because when it's time to pay for her consequences, um she has to consider her whole family. Whereas Misty, she doesn't consider her consequences because she's only got herself and Caligula, and so
well, I
that's
disagree
why
with
I
you
think,
though.
what's that?
I disagree with you on that, because I don't think Shauna thinks about her consequences at all. Like, I think Missy overthinks it. Shauna doesn't even think about it. She just does. She's so reactive and primal, and like she's not even thinking about it. And she's doing that's why her dark has taken over. She's doing all these things that she doesn't even control or she doesn't
Hmm.
even know. And she has that Shauna has that negative attitude that she's smarter than everyone. She's like, "Well, you don't think I know that, Misty?" Or, "Oh, this stuff is dumb, dumb." Everything to Shauna, everybody is dumb and stupid.
Hmm.
Everything. She says it throughout all of the seasons. And Missy makes a light joke about killing her lover, and Shauna's like, Shauna's starting to
I
finally
don't think
tell the
that's
truth.
funny.
Yeah, Shauna's starting to finally tell the truth and come with these things, but she still has that archetype and ego that she needs to let go.
Hmm. Yeah, I agree. She still, I think it's like a Shauna's more pathological, where it naturally
Yeah.
comes to her to just be like, no, and play the innocent card. Because
Hmm.
even when, she has the goat, it was just, yeah, it just, she's like,
It's
well, I'll,
sad.
I don't know. She's just an odd duck because she is being honest. She's being forced to be
Hmm.
honest, but I think she's looking at it again, like more how her family's going to take things than, actually paying for the consequences of the crime. She's not sitting there thinking, oh, I'm going to have to go to jail. She's thinking, well, what's Jeff and Callie thinking of me? And it's just not big picture. But these two are also intertwined with each other ultimately because of what happened with Adam. Because Misty was the one who took the body, and we learn at the end of the episode that the body has turned up. They found the body at a Hackleburny State Park. Um, and so Misty didn't do a very good job, although Shauna
Not very.
trusted her, with something that was, she probably shouldn't have just said, okay, I trust you. Go ahead, go handle this. Like, I don't know. It just seems, yeah, I mean, they've
Yeah.
disposed of plenty of bodies. You would think they would do a little better of a job.
Well, and but they bleached it and she chopped it, and there's a lot more to it, and I hope that they're gonna get deep into that next episode. Um, but let's go. Okay, so let's before we go more deeper on Shauna, let's just go back to Coach Ben and her,
Yeah.
and then Ben, because I want to finish and talk about them. I
Yeah,
think that
definitely.
Missy's having to sit down, but so my favorite thing, and we're adding to the cookbook, is Coach Ben's protein butt. Wait, what was the exact words? Do you remember?
Yes, his high calorie butt meat.
Yeah, so we're gonna have some pork, but some substitute it with Coach Ben's high calorie butt meat, or some long pig if you want. But
Some rump
yeah,
roast.
that's going in the cookbook for sure after this one. And like this whole thing, that was so beautiful that she was caught between the crystal issue and what Coach Ben, and when Coach Ben looks at her and says, "Can you just push me?" Like, I died. I was up out of my seat, looking at the TV like, "Ben, he's not gonna do it, is he? Is he? I don't know." But remember what happened, and we're comparing him. So the Magus part of that is that the character almost create book club, everyone almost commits suicide. And then he goes and finds a friend or a voice of reason, like Lisa or Walter, a friend who I don't know who's going to be, but he finds it and he starts little by little journeying off. And the other thing about it is that we're comparing him to Orpheus, who gets out of the underworld foot by foot. So I don't know how this is going to happen. But
So
wait, no,
let's do one at a
and then
time.
he
One
okay,
story at a time. So with the Magus, you know, and we talked about this a few weeks
yeah,
ago
let's do that.
when it was really prevalent because Coach Ben was reading that book, but Misty also read that book. And I think that's important that we don't forget that Misty also read it. But the Magus, yeah, is all about kind of like Great Expectations. We kind of compared these two because they were in the same episode where there's a wealthy older benefactor who's gone through like a traumatic experience, and so they use their wealth to sort of recreate the same trauma but force it upon someone else, or sort of even personally catered to that person. But anyways, with Coach Ben, you know, reading that book, I mean, what was coming to mind, I mean, he's obviously been put in sort of a powerless position because of his leg. And this is from the gate, you know, from the second they've landed in the wilderness. He lost his leg. He's lost all respect and dignity. You know, the girls don't respect him. They're not listening to him. He has no authority. So he's almost like a third wheel in a sense. And so you know, with the Magus, there's this idea that he might be able to regain the upper hand, but he has to play a psychological game versus, you know, because the girls are mainly focused on a physical game. Lottie kind of has like a spiritual thing going on, but nobody's playing like a psychological game really. And, you know, what do they say on Survivor? Outplay, outwit, outsmart, or outlast, or something like that. Anyway, so you have to outwit people also. That's always part of the game. So I think that that's going to be, especially after Misty has kind of exposed herself as emotionally vulnerable, and he's taken advantage of that before. So he may again, you know, try like think about the Magus, you know, he may be showing her an act of sympathy and empathy by saying, you know what, I realized that what happened was really emotionally distressing, and I'm not going to put another death on your hands. I can see where you're coming from, and that's reasonable enough for me to, you know, step back, literally. um so that's kind of my thought, is he may take this opportunity. Well, now he's made the choice to resist stepping off of the edge and ending things. Now he's got to figure out, oh, what's his purpose. That's what it always comes back to, whether it's Van, whether it's not. Now with Coach, what's your purpose? What are you meant to do? What can you do? What are you useful for? You know?
Well, I think that also has to do. So this is the first time they say Coach Scott. I've always been Ben, and I think that that's important to look at his name here too. What has he been? What could he be? What could have been with his lover? I think that Ben is obviously the archetype for a lover, and this when he did this and he saw Misty, and he loves Misty and he loves his girls, and he's finally stepping up to be an adult. He's finally stepping up and saying, "Hey, I need to be this. Look at these what I can do." He realizes the bigger picture here, and I think that that's important. But now, like, I want to say though, there's so let's go ahead and switch it over to the
although one last
Roman
thing I
side.
want to
You go.
say
Okay, you go
though,
ahead.
that Kelly, the Antler Queen, if you're in here, shout out to her chat last night, because she did say, you know, and I liked this a lot, even though it doesn't exactly go with our next part of this theory, but I like her idea that Coach Ben may be one of the people who actually ends up surviving and makes it out of the woods. So I thought that was fun. And also the aspect of that conversation that went down the rabbit hole of, or he somehow got left behind in the wilderness and now he's the new cabin daddy, which I just think is really funny.
Well, I think he's going to get left behind, but as like a soul that didn't get buried right or didn't get taken right. But I think he's going to be ripped apart by the girls, because if you go back to Doomcoming, there's a lot of symbolism between this episode and Doomcoming, right?
Mm-hmm.
The Lottie, the bear, Ben, this. Okay, so if you go back he wait, I just lost my train of thought. What did I say? Oh, rip apart. Okay, so Travis, when the girls have the spirit in them, when they're overtaken, right?
Mhm.
They're trying to literally rip Travis apart. Shauna reaches for Travis's ear and pulls the skin off. I don't know if anyone knows that, but the four of them wake up by the tree and they're in this like whole kind of mindset. And there's some mythology that storylines that go exactly with that, but I don't know them off the top of my head. I just remember I was reading it. But the thing is I really do think that this is going to happen to Ben, and he's yeah.
Are you talking about
But
the Orpheus mythology?
yeah, so I think
Okay.
that he's going to end up being ripped apart because of the But you want to go ahead and explain it deeper, Faye?
Yeah. Let me take this one. So, Orpheus, I'm sure some of you guys are familiar with Orpheus from Greek mythology. And again, going back to like Greek mythology being really present in this show, but especially in season 2. And I do hope that they continue with it because I really think we can look at a lot of things that happen in season 1 and tie it into the Greek mythology that's happening as a larger picture. But Orpheus was a guy. he was known for his music. He made the most beautiful music to make the nymphs and the naiads and the gods weep and all of this. And he married a pleiad. It's like a form of a naiad. And her name was Eurydice, and she was very beautiful. But and Orpheus loved her, but she ended up dying of a snake bite. Like there was another man who wanted her and was chasing her, and she was bit by a snake, and she just fell dead instantly. And her soul was taken to the underworld. Well, Orpheus was just like so distraught, and he was playing like all this passionate music that was just breaking everyone's hearts because he was just so depressed. And so the other naiads were like, you need to go to the underworld. You need to kill yourself. And so and try and get Eurydice back. See if you can, impress Persephone and Hades with your music and see if they'll like release Eurydice back to you. And so he goes down there and he does this. And he plays music. He puts Cerberus to sleep with his beautiful music. He makes the Erinyes, the Furies, he makes them weep from his music. And he moves Hades and Persephone so much that they're like, all right, fine, you can have your wife back. But Hades says you need to walk out of the underworld and not look back. You need to trust that she's behind you, but do not look back. If you look back, then you're going to lose her again and you'll never get her back. And so he's like, all right. So he starts walking out of the underworld and he doesn't hear anything behind him. And he doesn't hear any footsteps. He doesn't hear any breathing or talking or anything. And so he's walking out of there. Of course, it's because she's a dead spirit, but she is following him. But he just starts to, the closer he gets to the exit of the underworld, the more he's kind of starting to get stressed out about it. So finally he can like see the entrance and he's like, and he gives in and he looks back and she is back there behind him, but then she's sucked back into the underworld and he never gets to see her again. So after he emerges from that, he becomes really depressed. And he is beloved by Dionysus, who, is obviously hugely at play in this, but because he was like I can't remember why Dionysus like preferred him, but he just really like liked him a lot. And oh, just because of his musical skills and that kind of thing. But eventually Orpheus, he just is so depressed and like his experience in the underworld that he begins to worship Apollo and the sun and turns to the sun because of that darkness he left behind. And so this is another story of a descent into the underworld, a search, and then an ascent back to real life. And that's a huge theme in this story, a huge theme in a lot of the mythology of this story, including
Yeah.
Dionysus and others. So So
can I
Orpheus,
interject a sec?
he's,
Oh.
oh, go ahead.
I just want to say like that it matches perfectly because Ben had the soccer and that was like his life. Instead of music, you can replace that with soccer with his goal. That's all he saw. And his whole lover aspect, we get this in What Dreams May Come kind of, but this whole genuine love where he goes into the underworld to find it, and he's one of the only characters that actually come back from the underworld. But that is like related to Paul, like and don't forget to mention that Orpheus ended up being about liking the boys in the end.
Yeah, and you know who wrote that version? I love this the most. Okay, so Orpheus, he's beloved by everyone, but somebody was like not a fan and wrote a bunch of trash talk and like was like, "Oh, Orpheus liked little boys. He was gay." And guess who that person was? But Misty's favorite philosopher, Plato. And I just thought that was so funny for this scene where she's just like, I'm going to tell everyone this and that. I'm going to tell them you're gay. I'm going to tell them, that you impregnated all of us and this. Okay. So let me see what the quote is. Plato's representation of Orpheus is that of a coward. Instead of choosing to die in order to be with the one he loved, he mocked the deities by trying to go to Hades to get her back alive. Oh, you know what? I'm sorry. Okay, hold on. Before I start reading all of this, the end of the story is so Orpheus, he begins to worship the sun. He worships Apollo and Helios, okay, because of his experience in the underworld. Well, this really offends Dionysus. And if you're familiar with like how the Bacchanal story went, the Bacchae, with the, and like we saw in the Bacchanal scene where the girls are, ripping apart Jackie's body, except for, they dissociate and now it's all the fruit and all of this. Well, those are called the Maenads. They are the ecstatic worshippers of Dionysus, typically a group of women, and they, are sort of the fields and the forests and, goddesses of wine or sort of nymphs of wine for Dionysus. Anyhow, the Maenads are not happy that Orpheus has turned away from Dionysus. They're like, yo, who's playing the jams around here? Nobody's playing music. You mean our musician, our bard dipped out? And it kind of reminds me of Taliesin a little bit. But anyways, so they're pissed. The Maenads are pissed that like Orpheus betrayed Dionysus and is now worshiping Apollo. I don't blame them. Apollo, you pretty son of a bitch. But anyways, so they go and they rip him apart. They rip Orpheus apart and they eat his body. And it's very similar to the Bacchae, and that's even a different situation. That's a different person that they're ripping apart and all of that. So so it's really interesting. Go ahead, Mandy.
Okay, it's not. Okay. So I do also want to say that I was in us connecting their archetypal shadows or their archetypal primitive animals and this trickster energy in each of them. So the hair, I mean, all of those animals, like how they were going to rip Travis apart in the first season, that was symbolic foreshadowing. But also all of those animals are types of animals that can, in situations, devour or kill their mates. So I just want to say something. Yeah. So when they get this dark thing going off over him, it's going to be another thing. But okay.
Yeah.
So do you want to talk about this cabin though? Because I don't think we have talked about it.
Yeah, let's talk about it. So yeah, and I think that, with Paul, there was a lot of that Orpheus symbolism there because he gets this phone call and it's like from the other world, and it was almost like Hermes energy kind of, the ability to pass back and forth, and
it's very
kind of gay too, so that's cute.
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of the characters are supposed to be,
I think we're all,
androgynous.
Let's assume everyone in this story is bisexual.
That's how I approach this entire story. Both, yeah. But I think
bisexual also, to gay, but more on that spectrum than the straight spectrum.
This whole thing, though, this whole scene, it was very similar to Jackie's death scene with the "we love you, we all love you, it's
Yes.
okay." Like it's,
But
you
also
know, you
the
don't have to stay here. And
mhm.
I was loving it because between that and like him going to the thing, like Coach Ben's like, "Don't push me because I'm close to the edge. I'm trying not to lose my head." Meanwhile, Misty's like, "Give me a real reason to stay here. I'll turn back around." And then it's like, "Cause I'm coming out." Mm-mm. And then I feel this is like Coach Ben's, "I'm coming out. I want
Totally.
the world to know." And he also is like, that whole point where he says, "I don't care. I am gay. Like, tell them." So
Yeah.
it's him coming to sense, and I think this whole thing and this whole next movement with where we're going with the characters is like before we were working with the archetype shadows and they're like kind of inner conscious, and now we're going into the like subconscious do and the personal shadows of each one, which the
Mhm.
personal shadows are like, okay, it's like sexual. It's called their dark matter, right? And when you go into the underworld, they're spitting black bile too. It's like there's a lot of black bile symbolism that connects to all these different stories in the underworld and beasts. But a lot of the things we're seeing here is the trickster energy, the ability to go from the underworld out, and Orpheus was one of those people. And also Orpheus was able to to dead talk to dead souls, which I think Javi is dead. I'm gonna say it. He's still dead. He's walking. He wasn't buried properly, which is part of Greek mythology, and he has embodied his body again, and that's why only Ben can talk to him, and that's why I originally put Ben as Orpheus, and then it all kind of clicked after that. But anyway, so this dark matter thing, it's like our primitive drives. It's like sex. It's like sadistic. It's it's um it's Misty's like criminal side. It's hedonistic, aggressive. You see Ben aggressive, and it's also anxiety. And like Coach Ben shaved his beard. He let go. It's a symbolism of them not being worthy and not fitting that male thing. And when you think that all is going to end, he is overcoming that shadow
Mhm.
because of Misty. And I think so is Misty Conchi? Is Misty in the maggot in the Magus? Maybe she's conscious of Ben and Ben's friend that helps guide him.
That's a good
Idea.
point. I mean, there's that idea, or like yeah, I don't
Yeah.
know. I feel like Javi's friend is real. I feel like there is somebody out there, and that may be, what happened to Crystal's body. I don't know, but I just feel like there has to be something. Like Javi
Probably.
is,
I think
I
the
don't,
friend is more not or like not knowing, but she wasn't knowing she was doing it, or Ty, because Ty can travel and help. So there's like three gods, and Ty reminds me. Ty has Mad Hecate vibes for me, and she's able to like help them. Like she's able to help Shauna drink, and only like Ty, Lottie, and Nat can do it. But I think that like Nat with the blood sacrifice, but I do think that Javi is dead. Like I really honestly do, and I just don't think he's been able to transcend or go into whatever we're gonna do, whatever this mystical element is.
mhm. I like what Carrie says here. Yeah, I mean, there is a lot of different ideas with Javi, and also, my personal favorite that I
I'm
was
right.
discussing with Andy this week. That Javi is Lisa, but that's just my own
Yeah, I like that
fun one.
too. But honestly, I think I'm right. And then I also think Crystal is dead too, and she's gonna come back and be haunting Misty.
Yeah. Wouldn't it be strange? I had this like
Which
really
you can't
crazy thought
have.
that is
Yeah.
absolutely not, I don't really think it would happen, but wouldn't it be interesting if, trying to get back to, the wilderness or what have you, and then all the dead people are there. They're
Yeah,
all
they get
like
stuck
there waiting
there.
for them.
Yeah. Or there's some people that have to put themselves in that realm or they stay there, and there's a lot to like the restless dead. And maybe like now's a good time also to talk about the poll if you wanna while I talk about the or get
We'll
the
save that
poll.
for a few
Okay.
few more minutes, but yeah.
So like there's the okay, the three kinds of ghosts. The Adaphoi, I don't know if I'm pronouncing this right, so y'all just give me Arroweye, the deceased ones who died untimely or prematurely. That would probably be like a Laura Lee or the ones who died unfulfilled and turned into revenging ghosts,
Mm-hmm.
I think that's going to be a crystal. And, there's also ones that they didn't have their proper burials. And there's a lot to it too. And I'm kind of worried about Shauna's baby too, because I don't know if that's quite a proper burial. But she did throw the blanket in the fire, which is symbolic of giving it to him in the underworld. But there's
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of mythology that has the baby come back. I was reading one today, actually, this morning, about, I was like, oh, this could connect, but it was a little bit too, the storyline didn't fit perfect, but it kind of does. But that the baby comes back and kills the father. So I was like, oh, he's gonna raise his baby on spite. But
Yeah,
anyway.
or like, yeah, if somebody's left there that they're caring for. But I don't know. I mean, I think the baby, like the burial thing, she just
Well,
buried him in a stone cairn. I don't think that
mm-hmm.
was like, I think she did the best she could with
Well,
that.
yeah, the thing about it is, like, the proper burial has to, if the body's not buried, the soul gets caught in between two worlds and it's stuck there. But right now we're having the characters transcending, whether it be through their shadow work mind or whether it be through the spirits, whether it be a storyline of, our mythology. That's the trickster energy. But the one thing is for sure is that, Javi's not eating, okay? And or like once you eat and drink, also from the realms, you're supposed to be not, like, you're stuck there. So the fact that they're eating and drinking, some of them are, some of them aren't. Nat isn't in this whole episode, and that's when, she's in the lead now because I think she's leading them and she understands that. But there's just something to say about that. The fact that it's the abode rule, abode, I think it's called. Someone correct me in the chat if I'm wrong. ABODE. I,
Um, yeah, I mean, that's been, and even like in Shauna's dream that she had, I think that is really relevant, like the eating and drinking in these death dreams that they're having. Um, because Jackie, she has the hot chocolate in her death dream. Lottie, I Laura Lee had like ordered her some food in the mall scene, but I don't think she actually ended up getting to eat any of it. And then like with Shauna, um, Nat kept bringing her tea, trying to get her to drink, and she just wouldn't. But her baby did, and then the baby died, and so it's kind of like, is that significant? And Carrie says here, and this is actually what I've been studying on all week, is working on a big thing about this. So the Persephone and Demeter aspect
mm-hmm.
of the whole story and what it means for just the story in general. I think it's really surrounding Shauna and Jackie, and then of course the baby with that all in there. So anyways, I'm working on an essay for you guys, so hopefully you're into that. But yeah, I definitely think that there's that energy going on, where it's eating and drinking of the food of the underworld. And then there's, with like the Eleusinian mysteries, there's a um three parts of that ritual, which
Mm-hmm.
are the ascent, or no, the descent, the search, and the ascent. And again, going with the triangle imagery, and the feminine, the yoni triangle. So I think that there's something hugely at play with
Oh
all
yeah,
of
the
that,
whole
and then with
trickster thing.
Shauna too.
For
What's
sure.
that?
And yeah, the whole trickster thing. And then also, I
Oh,
really do
Johnny says.
believe when we're talking about mythology here that all of these, each one of them is connected to some one of them that can travel the realms, that they can. And I know that some of them are more in tune than others, but they all have that ability because that's what we're seeing. So it's really interesting to see where they go and if they're going to follow those storylines or if they're just going to keep hinting at it like the way they are. There's so many ways they can take it, and I think it's just so beautiful, this sacred knowledge and wisdom we share in all these
Yeah.
archetypes.
And it's
But like,
beautiful, like, well, the Eleusinian mysteries are beautiful too, because it's the idea,
mm-hmm,
the Hades and Persephone myth, has been so romanticized, and it's very popular. And Demeter is sort of seen as like this overbearing mother, and she's not really given her appreciation. But there is a lot to it, and if you look at the Eleusinian mysteries as a whole, they did two big festivals every year, and one was for anyone and everyone who wanted to, and the other was feminine only, that focused on the Demeter and Persephone aspect.
Mm-hmm.
However, what I think is like really beautiful about the ritual or the mysteries in general are that it is, in a sense, you're sort of, it's a ritual surrounding mourning the loss of your child. And in a time in history where there wasn't the same medical care that we have now, children did die from various diseases and illnesses, and or just anyone in general. But when it comes to your child, obviously that's something that is more, hits harder than anything else. And so the beauty in the Eleusinian mysteries is kind of like this ritual, this festival that sort of is celebrated by people who are trying to fathom this and process it in their mind. And it is a personal journey. It is a personal sort of descent into the underworld, so that you can believe that like your loved one is safe in that place. And again, going back to the underworld, not just being hell in essence, like heaven and hell. No, it's where all souls go, and there are different levels, different areas, but everyone is there. So once you can kind of make your peace with that, and then that can help you face death or process it. And so when you have like the Eleusinian mysteries, which is fully just surrounded with that, just acceptance of death and other people accepting death and like trauma that's happened to them, then there is like this, it's beautiful. I think it's just beautiful. So yeah, that's my thoughts. And then with Yellowjackets, we're looking at Shauna, who has lost so much. She's lost Jackie, her best friend, but then she loses her child, and there's a ton of guilt that's surrounded with Jackie and the child. There's so much surrounding that, with her relationship with Jeff, and then just like Jackie's death, and then cannibalizing Jackie's body so that her child could survive, and then the child doesn't survive. So there's so much guilt surrounding that. And so I really feel like this is like a big part of this journey that Shauna is on. And
But
it's also a matter of accepting, though, and that kind of goes for all of them.
And I want to talk about like Loki though. Like, I think Shauna has mad Loki vibes. And there's also Goddess of Lies, that her daughter inherited that as well. I can't think of the name right now, but there's a lot of different things we can connect it. And I read a couple things. I'm like, man, this is Shauna. This is Shauna. But it's always that trickster. Like, she's the rabbit. Am I still here? Okay. Yeah. She's the rabbit. She's the hare, trickster energy. Um, it's so much. And the like whole life rebirth. I think that she's now in this rebirth.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a beautiful thing. And yeah, I think you're right. Like the rebirth, we really see that in that moment with her and Lottie, where she's like holding the goat and she starts crying and she's like, I'll kill the goat. I'm not going to kill the goat, and then she confesses to keeping Callie at a distance and that
The
kind of thing.
kid, the kid is the
kid,
word.
yeah. Yeah.
And that is what she's like, what did you say?
And
then
just
it just
the fur on the goat, I think, was, very triggering with the whole thing with the baby too. It was very
But the whole
similar.
thing also, like the connection between her, the stupid thing, you're not gonna make the Mensa, you're not gonna, like, she's yelling at the goat, kind of like she yelled at herself, and she doesn't want to own it, but then she ends up saying, I'm not gonna kill this one, and she really just relates it to, she's like, Lottie's, you don't have to kill the goat. What are you talking? Like, that's the point. But I like that part because Lottie's like, something innocent. She kind of like says it a little bit suggestively there. So if we want to get into some other symbolism with that, but
yeah, let's talk about this scene. And also, I had some thoughts about this because there was an interview this week with Simone Kessel. I want to say with TV Insider, and Mrs. Duncan the Tall, if you're still in the chat, she sent me this link, and so if you're here, drop it in the chat. But it was an interview with Simone Kessel, and one of the really interesting things she said about this scene was that she, despite this photo right here, she actually held back in this scene as Lottie from touching Shauna because she felt like Lottie has some lasting trauma internally from the fight that we get at the end of the scene, from someone who abused her, is what she specifically says. And I don't know if that's going to stem only to the fight scene or if this is going to be something bigger, because I kind of do feel like I have my thoughts about this potentially being the divide.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So I thought it was really interesting where she just said, I held back from touching her, even though I held space for her. I held, empathy for her in that moment. I understood where she was coming from, but I didn't touch her. I didn't let her in my space until like the end of the scene. I think this was like the very last moments in the scene, because she sort of stands back. And I think it's really interesting, the interactions between these two. Obviously in the last episode, when everyone arrives at the compound and Shauna first sees Lottie, she crosses her arms. There is some animosity between them that we have yet to be, exposed to. So I am really eager to see where that goes for these two.
Well, and also Lottie is just, she's broken. She's dead now. She's the opposite. She's not in lead. And I think that we'll talk about that later. But also this whole thing, it really reminded me of Psyche and her challenges where she has to go get the goat or the sheep, and like they're looking for that golden fleece. In a sense, they're looking for that gold in their darkness, and I think that it's symbolic of a goat because there's two ways you can get it. It's through like the through the ivory gates. You can get out of hell through the ivory gates, or through the horns. So the goats here is like, again, trickster, devil. Are we gonna, Hades? Are we gonna mix it together? But this whole thing,
of course, we can't forget who else had a goat. Walt Havisham.
Honestly, like he might, like it would be cool if he ends up being like the Hermes or something.
This
I don't
is
know.
a male goat too, so didn't he say it has to be a female goat to produce cheese? Although behind the scenes, this is actually a female goat. It's not a male goat, but he has been named Bruce. He's gender fluid. He's a gender fluid goat. Okay. But yeah, it would be interesting. Like, what if this is like?
Think that there's a lot of like arrows with Jeff, like Psyche and arrows, and like I just want to. There's so much. Yeah. Oh, and then she has to go get Persephone's beauty queen, and after, like, I feel like that's definitely a Jackie thing, the beauty.
So let's talk about Lottie and her therapist. And hold on, I want to take this down before we get into like the good photos.
So Lottie, man.
So what are your guys' thoughts on Lottie and her therapist? And actually, I do want to say I did notice, and I posted this on Twitter the other day when I caught this, but yeah, so we can see there were some hints. So this is Lottie's therapist's office. I'm sure you guys are familiar with, the layout. This in particular always caught my eye since the first time we saw her therapist, because it's so distinctly like antler-esque. And then of course we've got like the honeycomb things on the wall. But anyway, so the desk is here, the chair is here, all the shelves, and this in particular. And then when they posted the trailer, I caught that this was back here. So I did notice that this was all happening. I noticed it before it happened. Okay, guys. Okay.
So that sign in the back is also in the cabin. It's in the cabin, that little circle. So when she has her dream, Shauna has the dream, and the baby, Ty comes in, and it's right behind the door when Ty comes in, that circle.
Interesting.
I just noticed that too.
Yeah. So, and then, here, I do want to point out, I took this shot because I really, really loved this shot. And they did it for like about 30 seconds or so of the therapist in this, from this angle. And I absolutely loved it because something about her here just gave me such like oracle vibes, such like a Greek Roman, like the fates, somebody giving you your future, spinning, the threads of time. Just
The
the
golden thread.
exact, and she just she has very Roman features from the side, her nose, her hair, the way they had her hair sort of pulled over, the curls.
She's
I mean, it
androgynous.
just screamed at me of just like this sort of Greco-Roman oracle vibe. And then the fact that she transforms into the Antler Queen, which we call her the Antler Queen, we in the as fans call her the Antler Queen, but the showrunners and the writers call her the Oracle. So the fact that this is how Lottie is sort of envisioning pre-Antler Queen, she is an oracle in a sense, and she's giving her this sort of cryptic advice that's definitely not medically sound from any sort of psychiatric perspective. But yeah, it's just, this was a great scene. And then let me flash
So yeah,
forward
I think
here.
at this point too,
Oops,
like
there it is.
again, pay attention to her telling her before you wear your truest, most authentic self, and that's a lot of
Mhm.
Carl Jung. And anything of value doesn't come with risk or loss. And you know, the hunt that has no violence doesn't feed anyone. There you go, right
Exactly.
there. And
Yeah.
that's the thing, though, is it's we're all the same. We're all made of the same stuff. But
Mhm.
this is definitely Lottie just, and I feel like on her shamanistic journey, she's getting her dark night of the soul, or the black shaman. Um, she's not she's afraid to give advice. She's not taking the lead for the group.
Mhm.
The queen has now left her, I think.
It's I think it's in her, and
Well, I think it's in all
this is
of us.
her shadow self, right? Like
Mhm.
and Lottie has worked so hard to stay elevated, to stay away from the shadow aspect of herself. She's a light worker, right? She's love and light, and the Antler Queen is your shadow. And so when she's faced face to face and she realized that bitch was already in my freaking head. She's already got me, So Lottie has no choice and it freaks her out. She's absolutely terrified when the knock comes on the door and she snaps out of it and she's like, I've been in my own cabin this entire time, and it snaps into her that she realizes. But it all is coinciding. The girls coming
Yeah.
back, all of
Let
that
me
stuff is really bringing that out in her. And it's just like she says later in the episode, you can resist those manifestations, you can resist those things, the experiences that have happened, you can hide them and bury them, but they will manifest into things that are dark, that are terrible. And like with Lottie, she's obviously manifested into having her mental issues sort of
Mhm.
exacerbated. And with Shauna, she, her butcher aspect comes out and she has killed Adam. And, so all of these little things. And like with Nat, she becomes suicidal. And so it's just,
Well,
yeah,
yeah,
they
she's
do have
flipped.
dark. What's that?
Yeah, but they flipped. Like
Yeah.
now Lottie's there. But here's the thing: the knock on the door. So that was Lisa, the inner conscious, the Lisa that is helping everybody find their true authentic self. And here's her therapist saying that was when you were. So Lisa's knocking, Lottie, are you there? Are you there? Are you there? So I thought that's like that catch that symbolism of her being locked in her room, back in her box, back
Mhm.
in her dark matter soul, back where the other girls are finally transcending from. It's just so like that was a little detail that I love the knock from her.
Yeah. Yes, Moni, I absolutely sing that all day long.
Mm.
My daughter, I have a daughter who's autistic, and she does a lot of communicating through music, and she really loves No Return for some reason. And like, I haven't even like, I'm not like, oh, let's watch Yellowjackets because it's not very appropriate for, a 6-year-old. I mean, I will sometimes, but like, yeah, she just loves the song, and then I'll start singing it and she gets all mad. She like tries to shut me up. She's like, stop it. But yeah, No Return. Anyhow, yeah. Yes, I agree with what you're saying, Mandy. Lisa, she is so grounded, and actually I really like that she's like the most balanced, especially going back to the idea of like, if Lisa is Javi, but then Lisa is actually the most grounded, the most stable, source, voice of reason kind of thing, where, and it's just like the messaging that it sends, and I love it. So anyways, but yeah, I love the Lisa's
I
hobby
think
theory.
it's
I know
really good.
it's not seamless. It's not
No, it's
seamless. There
cool.
are some things, but I still love it.
It's cool. Why not? It's a trickster energy here.
Why not? Exactly. Maybe he,
But like,
what? We
so
don't
let's
know what happened in the wilderness. Maybe he just received like some anti-aging serums of some variety.
well, she's discovering also something like the whole thing with Lottie is like it's discovering something that you never really knew was there, and she didn't, because I think that she was so, like you said, so much into her son's side, and now the flip. But so let's talk about the bear and Doom coming in her. So when the bear, I really think Lottie's the bear. That's her animal totem. But she killed the bear. The bear submitted to her, and she submitted like the bear to Shauna. Like,
Okay.
just like the bear. It's like the same scene almost. And because I watched that this morning, I watched Doom coming again, because I was like, I gotta go back and look at this, and I was seeing a lot more stuff. But yeah, I like that, and I also like that Lottie is just like, okay, so let's talk about like her and Ty when they got together, and she just says, hey, listen, like, she's pretty much projecting everything she needs to tell herself. That other part of you has that deep wisdom. The other part of you is always going to be a part of you. It's that trauma, that suppression, that thing. And I love, these symbols and these, that the bear and the maiden fared mistaken. But so this is also symbolic of the tree where they put parts of them, the offerings. And I think she's gonna have to offer herself. So she has to offer Nat to take the lead. Oh, you're on mute, Faye.
Sorry. Go ahead. I got this great behind the scenes shot. I've got some great backplate shots. Thank you, Mara. From the show, but this is the tree. So we didn't get to see a very good shot of it in the episode, but yeah, they stop by the tree, they drop off an offering. It's interesting. I think I saw Lottie was taking a little hair. That's what it looked like. It was maybe that hair offering that she had cut off when the baby was born, and like had put it in the on the moose skull or what have you when they were doing their offerings. So I think she took her hair out, put it at the tree.
Crystal? You said Crystal?
No, Lottie.
Oh, Lottie.
Yeah, during the birth. So when they started doing the sacrifices, and Travis cut his hand and all that, and they were all putting their stuff, Lottie actually cut off a lock of her hair, and that was her offering.
Coming to Travis's blood was like the set off, and the Minotaur energy too. But so this is also why I think Crystal might come back, because when Lottie was going and asking Ty to try to accept that, right? Lottie knows and feels that Crystal's still there. So this is why I think that Crystal's still alive. I think she's going to come back and haunt her, because she just knows, like, she feels it. She just knows.
Andy, I've got some inside connections. Let's just say
yeah, we have. Also, like, let's talk about Ty in the modern day, she's painting a box.
Oh my
Mind
God,
you,
I
okay,
love
so
this.
the black box is what we're trying to get out of. Ty's is
No, she's
gold.
painting
It's gold.
actually, I have a shot of it,
No,
and let me
yeah,
pull it up because I
she's
freaking
painting it
loved this
gold.
scene because
Yeah,
it was her. It reminded me so much. Hold on, let me pull it up real quick. Of Spill. I think that was the title of the episode in season 1. But where is
but
this?
yeah, let me
Show up.
say the box thing because like
There it is.
now again, Lottie's going into her dark box of the mind and soul, and she's starting to get the gold out, which the gold is what you want to find in the underworld. The gold is the better part of you. That's the higher consciousness. The gold is what we're
He's
going
doing this
for.
in a little
Go
bit
team.
more.
And you saw the FUCK? I died. I died. I was like, that's so Ty.
I love
And
that. But yeah, it was
glad you're born.
I loved it because it was so much like Spill. Okay, so season 1, Spill, remember she blames Sammy, the red paint, and painting Spill outside of their house. And that's when she sees the wolf outside the house and she's like, stay here, Simone. She grabs the knife and she goes outside. She's barefoot. She goes full primal. She goes outside and she's like, I'm going to take care of this. And that's when she finds Spill has been written on the house or painted on the house in the red paint. So this was very reminiscent of that because the whole thing in that scene was like Ty was not even aware of her altar in that moment. That was kind of her first like because she's like, oh my, that was when she realized like something was going on and she said, okay, I'm going to call this press conference and I'm going to end my political career essentially. And so then once she's in having the press conference, her altar comes out and she's like, no, never mind. And she sees the man with no eyes and she's like, so she flips her script. So there's just something very like these scenes were so parallel to one another, with her painting and Lottie is trying to bring that out of her. She's instigating that out. It's so crazy the way Lottie predicted their like little tasks so well. But
well,
yeah, this is so good because
I think the task could be applied to all of them in different ways. It's going to do it. But, they got to pick their own too. And those tasks are actually like shamanistic tasks. Even like, I'm telling you, it's like all part of that shamanistic healing journey. But I loved her first initial reaction. Like, I don't got time for this. This isn't going to work. This is, like quick, it's done. It's over. Like she doesn't even give it a chance. But just so Ty because she's like I feel like she's when we're talking the chakras, when I'm talking the least, she's grounded. She is, like she's eating the dirt literally.
Yeah,
and,
totally. No, I agree.
So
I think, and then she kind of, so she goes, Lottie comes around and Lottie's like, their dynamic was kind of interesting too, in this scene because Lottie was like, well, why don't you tell me what's wrong with you? Like she was kind of snarky with her almost, which was a little bit, out of character. But she's like, and so Ty admits she's been sleepwalking again. And so it is a parallel to the younger scenes where Ty says, I've stopped sleepwalking actually because I was going to your groups. But Lottie believes that altar is very important to Ty as a person, to her fundamentally. That person's connected to the wilderness. That person, is guides her to a lot. Like that person knew where Javi was. That person knew where the symbols were. So that aspect of her is very important. And she just doesn't want to be suppressed is what Lottie tells her. She just doesn't want to be suppressed. Now, here is the idea I had, because I guess we're just on the tie. We're going to save the fight until last. We'll get there. But anyway, so I feel like I had this idea, and tell me how you guys feel. Okay, we've been looking at Ty's altar as the one who needs help. Ty needs help because she's being plagued by this dissociative identity. It's cutting into her life. It's trying to hurt her family. It's this negative aspect. It's pushing her family away, yada, yada. But it also drove her to go to Van. Okay. What if Van, who we just found out is sick in this episode, that she has cancer. What if Ty's altar sensed that? What if the altar was ultimately trying to get to Van because Van was the one that needed help. Van was the one that needs her. Van's the one that, like, we're sitting here focused on Ty and how much help Ty needs, but it was actually Van. Van's alone. She's been living alone out there in another state by herself. Her mother's dead. She's like she's got full arrested development, living in that 90s like fantasy where they never went through the experiences that they went through. She's not exactly in like a healthy frame of mind, psychologically speaking. And so my idea was that maybe it was Ty's altar was just trying to get to Van to help Van. It was never about bringing the altar back out for any other reason than just to get to Van and help her.
Well, you had some really good ideas about her possibly being like a snake figure or head of a snake. And with Hermes, you have the two. And I think that that's perfect for Ty, that she's going to end up being the two snakes of the healing, which is she's going to heal.
Like
she's going to help heal. Yeah, like, I mean, the Hermes wand with the healing snakes, the medical symbol. I feel like that's going to come into play.
The Caduceus is not the medical symbol. It's actually Hermes' nephew, Apollo's son, Asclepius, who's
but you know what I'm talking about.
symbol. But yeah, the Caduceus, yeah.
Well, no,
but
yeah,
no, I agree.
Both.
And that's
actually
his ability to, that's what gives him the ability to fluidly pass to the underworld and back, is the Caduceus.
But so I think that also, yeah, like look at, she's got the gold box and Lottie's going into the dark box, and that's so much symbolism in gold when we're talking about the underworld and like all of the golden fleets, the golden threads, all of this stuff. Gold is the color, everyone. We are the golden Yellowjackets. Like they just won the gold. They're going to win it again. But the thing with Van, so I think she has lupus. There's a type of lupus, like a systematic. Oh, I gotta find my notes here.
This is really good. Like, so get your
so it's called lupus is called the wolf bite, and it's named after wolf in Latin. And I think that there's a part that actually affects the eyes. Systematic lupus, something I don't even know. I have so many pages up here. But, I have like 30 pages up here. Yeah.
I'll let you find it if you want me to. If you want to look for it really quick.
So that's the point. That's the point. Oh, here it is, right here. Okay, it's systematic lupus erythematosus. So, yeah, it occurs in people who have overactive immune systems, and it affects most of your organs. And when we talked about the DNA as having this overall wisdom that we have all the elements we need in us to heal us already, that we're all made of the same things, the same elements, the same alchemistic components. What medicine is alchemy. I feel like this is the trio, because there's trio everywhere. There's three everywhere, but four is where we're trying to go, right? But the trio with tree Ty, regular Ty, and Van, this healing element, if that does play out, where, because like she does have that serpent, the snake, who can also go to the underworld and back, but she's not quite a deity or a higher god like the sun and the moon. You know, she's not quite the same level, but she has that open eye. And so with Van losing her eyes, and then it also gives me back to like the whole three, like the mystics, or like the great Hyphae, the Gracie, I think you said Gracie, so the three witches. And where they all share the same eye or tooth. And what did Van have here? Her little tooth, her necklace. Well, it's not really a tooth, it's a vertebrae. But I guess it could be, I think that it could be considered like something like that. But
interesting.
I think it's going to be really cool if they attack on that side.
I think it would be a really cool angle to take. And we haven't got to explore much of Van's illness yet. There's been kind of speculation around it. It's simply based on the painkillers. But we haven't actually seen, her symptoms and that kind of thing quite yet, and learn more about it. I think she's keeping that really, hidden, really guarded. before showing that, because
God.
she, even to Ty, you know, she was like, you know, what am I supposed to call you and just tell you this? Like, what are you gonna send me flowers or message me on Facebook?
Mhm.
You know, I
That
think,
was so real. Like, isn't that so relatable though to nowadays and how we've lost that connection to each other as human beings? And
mm-hmm,
like, I felt that. I felt it hard when they said that. And she was like, "Yeah, I know." And of course, Ty, of all people, like, she made Van's cancer about her and how she has the connections and she wants to. Why didn't you tell me? Like, instead of hey, like, how are you? Like, like, trying to like. Ty took it over and has made it her issue. I think she's, super selfish in a lot of ways, especially with her family. But like, we
mm-hmm,
see her finally, what we've been saying this whole time, like, why haven't you checked on your family or whatever? But they did leave her. They did at the end of season 1, but they're back together. So well, they weren't back together, but she should at least be checking. And she did care when she started kissing her, but at the same time, like, you see her putting her ring down, and that's, very symbolic and significant of her. And yeah, so the seer thing. But I also think that when Van's telling her last episode, like, don't worry, I didn't lose, it wasn't you that I lost my heart over. Like, I think that Van is actually really falls more in love with Tree Time. And
yeah,
my thing is I watched while you were sleeping this week and while you were streaming, but she falls in love with the other. She wants to be with this one she wants to be with the man who she saved her life, Sandra Bullock, which is their favorite, by the way. There's so much Sandra Bullock. But she wants to be with this guy that she's saving, and Van saved Ty a lot of times, right?
mm-hmm,
But the other one, her brother, is who she really ends up falling in love with. And I really think that that's going to happen and we're going to see in season 3 probably more about Van and Tree Tie really connecting, because the times that she really believed in Van is when she brought Van to the symbols, following her to the trees, and that sex primal, like that inner urge is what I think Tree Tie is. And it's gonna be good.
yeah.
I think so. I mean, what do you guys think? Do you think that would mirror good, like the while you were sleeping? Do you think?
I think so. I think it's a great point. Sorry, I'm trying to find my Ty and Van notes. Where are they?
Yeah, at the top.
Okay.
I've
Yeah,
highlighted a lot of
I
stuff too that we've already done.
yeah, I think you're onto something. I think it could be really interesting too, because you know, it was almost like real Ty was the one who was talking to her in the car, and she, you know, and then Van was
Real
like,
Ty always
don't worry, it's
suppressed
not.
her.
What's that?
Like, Real Ty always suppressed her, and I mean, she says in the beginning, she's like, I really need you. Like, you have
Hmm.
been there for me. But like, now she doesn't know her. And I think that is
Yeah.
the key.
I think the real Ty is like a more superficial aspect, right? Um she's operating from a different vibration. She's you know, she wants success, she wants Simone, her trophy wife, and you know, she wants to be this politician and
Hmm.
paint this, you know, perfect picture. But her altar is, again, you know, her shadow aspect, where like you can't have everything, you know. And so and she's experiencing that on like a real physical level, where um you know, things come at a cost, right? And so she can't reject every or suppress every aspect of herself
Yeah.
without it manifesting in some terrible things. However, the same would go probably for the altar. And so like maybe the altar and Van had a much stronger relationship and connection, but perhaps Ty was not following her, you know, her dreams. Oh, you know, I wanted to go to Columbia, and I wanted to become a lawyer, and this and that and the other.
Yeah.
Whereas Van, I mean, I don't want to say Van's not motivated. Van is just regular. Van's your every woman. Van is us, you know. Van is you know,
I I feel like
living
she's kind of a
doing
hero.
what makes them happy. Sh- sh- they have a shop. They have a, they live above their shop. They're self-sufficient, living on their own terms, don't have a bunch of baggage weighing them down and this kind of thing. And so,
Van's a caregiver archetype to me, and she and she says it here, and I think that in the '96 when they're coming out, and she says like, I've been through all this stuff. I've been surviving all this shit that should have killed me. I thought it had a greater purpose. I'm not seeing it. And she says, like, Ty's like, you help me see, hear, sleep, and I'd be dead without you. I need you, Van. And that is it. And now it's vice versa in the future. And I think that, them coming apart, her connecting with her other self and bringing all three into the mold together is going to be, it's time we woke up. So it's going to be a interesting journey.
I like what Luna says here. Van's a caregiver by nature. She's more attracted to Tree Tie because of this. Van needs to caregive. And I think that's a good point, especially too, considering like if they broke up, whatever the reason they broke up. And then if Van is being honest, perhaps like she shifted to taking care of her mother, like she said. Now, granted, like maybe the painkillers obviously weren't her mother's, but I don't think she would lie and say, oh, my mom had cancer and died of it, if that hadn't really happened. Just because she has cancer as well doesn't mean that whatever happened with her mother didn't happen. And so I feel like
it's genetic
if she
disease.
does have that caregiver nature, then perhaps like after she and Ty broke up, maybe she was driven to develop more of a relationship with her mother, and maybe her mother actually was sick, and maybe she actually did take care of her, and that kind of occupied her time for however long it did. And so
I do think it's true, because it is a disease that is passed down through genetics, and that's like kind of the point of this ancient knowledge, wisdom, hermeticism, self-healing abilities of your body. And once the belief is real, the biology of belief, in a sense, because that's going to be activated.
What's interesting too is to consider like the suppression. Like if you suppress, like what Lottie said, well, if you're suppressing these things that happen, then it can manifest in other ways. And like, what if like Van's has manifested in cancer because she's been living in this state of denial, this state of sort of arrested development. It's
her 96 self. She's and the key word is like, when I thought we could be happy, but she hasn't pressed any forward or back. She's just stagnant, which is like, I don't know if that's
stuck in 96.
And whereas Ty is like completely overwhelmed by her alter ego taking over because she suppressed it so much, whereas Van just ignores it. And even when she's supposed to go forward, she's just like, I just went to go get the bottle from my thing, and she just doesn't want to put the time. She doesn't think she has the time, and she doesn't want to.
And even like her younger self, where she's talking to Ty and she's like, saying like, I'm just not seeing like what my purpose is. And that's very like reminiscent of Nat, Nat talking about the purpose. But also we have to consider like Ty, okay, at this point, she said, since I started going to your prayer circles, then now I'm not sleepwalking. Now I'm not having these issues. So maybe Van's feeling again kind of stagnant. She's like, well, now what's my purpose if I'm not looking after Ty 24/7? And another thought I had too was about Van and Nat, because I've noticed this kind of interesting energy between them. And you've talked, Mandy, your theory about Nat and her like parallel to Sharon, and
Hermes I mean, they're all the same kind of trickster energy that can bat. But yeah, she's definitely the river Styx. Like she's the boat. She's the ferryman for sure.
And my thought at first, initially, before we learned that Van had cancer, was, oh, maybe Nat sees her and she recognizes that she has addiction problems, and maybe she, can, because addicts can recognize that, like right off the bat from, just looking at a person, they can just pick it up. And so I feel like,
hold on.
But no, she she kind of gives her a strange look, or like, she's kind of like a little bit standoffish, like she's kind of looking at her like, kind of questionable. And obviously Nat herself is trying to transmute into like she's trying to ascend, right? And so when she looks at Van, and Van is, my thought was, oh, maybe she's looking at her thinking she's like on pills, she's on, drugs or what have you. And she's like, no, I cannot be a part of that. But again, in this episode, it happens, and it's after we learn about Van's cancer. Van goes, and once Lightning Crashes starts, she tries to get Nat to dance with her. She's like, come on, come dance with me. And Nat kind of just gives her a look and doesn't get up. And then Lottie comes over and gets Nat to dance with her. But my thought was that Nat, as that Sharon position, as a person who is escorting souls to the underworld, is kind of her like vibe. My thought was, oh, she recognizes that Van is sick. She can sense that illness. She knows Van is dying, and she doesn't want to have to do this, And it was almost the same when the baby was being born, and Nat's carrying in the basket. And Mandy, you had kind of equated that to Sharon's boat and like her gun as to his oar. And so I feel like this was more, further on that idea, where her sort of underworld sense was kicking in, and she's like, oh no, I don't want to have to do this. I cannot be this person. I don't want to be this person. She's trying to ascend from that dark place, and so it could be like an interesting challenge for her.
Yeah, I mean, and I want to like point out, okay, so I really think Van is going to be some fire, and there's a lot of talk about the fire thief and like how maybe the snake, her fire is gone. And when we see her in season 1 and they're on mushrooms and doom coming, whatever, she's literally on fire. She's got red blazing eyes. And okay, so the Hermes Trismegistus, right?
Mm-hmm.
The wind is carried in its womb, and the earth is the nurse thereof. So it kind of reminds me of Misty, whatever. It'll be cast on earth, and then I will separate the element of earth from that of fire. And that's those two, I really do believe that. Like, she's eating I just believe that. And then the whole like triple thing is like, for this reason I am called Hermes Trismegistus, because I hold 3 parts of wisdom of the whole world. Mm-hmm. And that which I have to say about the operation of soul is complete. So it's just like, if y'all haven't read it, it's the one true, which is above is to that which is below, and which is below is to that which is above, and to accomplish the miracles of one thing. Mm-hmm. And so that's the polarity, all that stuff. And these two, and all of alchemy and all of that hermetic wisdom is trying to get the elements, or Mercury, which we see a lot of Mercury, and we've been talking about red Mercury particularly. Mm-hmm. We can't talk about it today, but go on a good rabbit hole. Go on a trickster rabbit hole.
In the sense of like looking at the bigger story as a whole, like we can really play with this like Greek mythology, like imagery that they're giving us so much of. And again, it may just be like a season 2 theme, but I hope that it's going to be like throughout the whole show, because I really think they can, there's so much of that, the triple aspect, like dynamic in Greek mythology. There's like countless trios of like, we have like the Furies, we have the Graces, we have the Gracia, the Fates, all of these Fates. The Fates are Greek, right? They're not Norse. I can't remember. I always
everyone knows what you're talking about. That's the thing. Is like it's all
cross-cultural, really.
Yeah, and in that thing it says, thus the world. Hence, there will be marvelous adaptations achieved, of which this manner is. So, it's all similar things, but the same adaptation, the same general knowledge that applies to different archetypes. Highlight Eliana's carbs. She has since Van is dying, wouldn't she be the closest to the darkest spirit in a position to navigate back and forth unlike any other Yellow Jackets? Yes. Okay, I like that idea. And this is where we go into the three of them because they're sharing the eye, right? They're sharing that with the three or the snakes, or like Van might be end up being the she might end up being the pole. She might end up being, hey, I could see Van like maybe she is Hades because she was the one that was on fire in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And she never understood. She never had that death dream. She said, I just connected. She told us, but we never witnessed that.
Yeah.
Like it could be that, like, honestly.
I like that because she has a vision, she has a death vision, although she's not like eating or drinking or anything, but hers is so psychedelic when she has that, sort of like the purple and like, yeah.
Well, that was like them on, like, she didn't have one though. She just told Ty about it. Like she almost died several times, and she said in episode 10 last year, which is like, oh, by the way, the sick Gloria Transit Mundi, the world, like the access, hey, the access Mundi. But anyway, she, I don't know, there's something more to Van for sure. And yes, she has a caregiver, but I was trying to figure out what I would put her as too as a mythology. And I thought I just keep going back to the three and with the seeing, and I keep going back to maybe she's a bigger portion, because like we just got her. There's a lot we don't know about her. She's not quite an element. I mean, maybe I don't know.
I think she's so associated with the fire element. Like she's done so much fire association. She survived fire. She survived trial by fire. So I kind of feel
that's
like
Hades though, right?
Well, maybe, but I mean, Hades isn't really fire.
Well, I always think of Hercules, where he's like, and then blue fire.
Oh yeah, he does
have fire. No, but she could be a purple blue fire. Like, yeah.
But Hades is Earth. He's a Earth, like the underworld. It's like Earth. But and
Hell, the goddess Hell. I mean, yeah, there's a lot to it. Like it could be a lot.
But I do like that. I think, she does have that connection to death. It's sort of like she's almost crossed over and back. I mean, if anyone's seen hell, it would probably be her trapped inside of that freaking, the plane when it explodes, and she's just trapped in there. I mean, if anything could be more hell-like, it would be, that she's gone through it. And
I like the idea of her being like the theft of fire, like, because it goes in a lot of mythology where recurring themes, that trickster energy is stealing fire, and doesn't maybe and she doesn't trust humans. She doesn't trust anybody. She's locked in her world. She doesn't want to give the fire back, and she doesn't trust Ty, but she trusts Tree Ty. Hey, I like that. That's an idea. Yeah,
maybe we're on to something, guys. Yeah, I've always gotten this vibe that she's like the cleansing fire. She's
the Olympic flame.
Yeah, but like, Ty has sort of, I mean, if anybody kind of has like a demon attached to them, it would be Ty, because she has the man with no eyes that's like sort of haunting her and sort of been haunting like her lineage. And so my thought in the back of I have a lot of like thoughts in the back of my mind about Van. One being that Shauna is going to protect her with her van. That's part of Shauna's obsession with her van, is she's going to be extra protective of Van.
Don't underestimate that minivan, okay? Stow and go, speeding in storage, where you can hide all of your shadows and secrets.
Exactly.
Hey, Shauna has all her, and we've talked about that. I know I'm just joking about it, but we have talked about what if there's another diary, and what if there's stuff inside Shauna's van, because why did she get so protective about it?
And
Hermes, and Carl Jung, though, did all these black books, these diaries, right? He for 50 years, he did these books of his shadow work, and they all became this red book at the end. And I really think that this is going to happen for her when she ends up and she foreshadows, oh yeah, when I get famous, put it in the archives. in which you know when she
Well,
gets arrested, but
and you know what's interesting is when they in the very beginning of the episode and they're
I think Jeff's
checking
gonna go
in,
down for her though.
everybody has to, turn over their belongings and this and that.
Oh yeah, bring that
Shauna,
up.
she's clinging to her purse, and Nat has to be like, your purse, and she's like, fine. And in my mind, I'm thinking there's a diary in there. So who's got her stuff on the back, on the whatever
so much,
going on in the
man.
background or whatever. But they may, depending on who's running Lottie's cult, like ultimately, like who's really running things, it's kind of, is Walter involved? Is there, more a bigger hand at play? Is there a Miss Havisham of the story? You know, so I just thought that was interesting. I noticed that she was a little bit protective over her bag. That's because I think there's a journal in there. Okay. And yes, Andy, Van and Shauna's always got the black and white tennis shoes, just like Van warned of. Okay.
So the Greek goddess of truth is Athena, and I think she has a daughter. Because I was just thinking of that. Like, she's just so.
Did you say Athena?
Althea. Althea.
Oh.
Althea. Hold on, let me Google some. Googling. Roman mythology, Veritas. I'm so bad. A daughter of Saturn. Titan of time. Mother. So I really think that her lying is something just. It's a key. It's a key. It's a key to her gold mining. It's a key to her inner conscious. It's a key to so much.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, let's go.
Okay, so let's actually, before I was gonna get into Shauna, but let's do our music thing first, and then let's also do a card pull. Are we doing that today?
Me or you? I don't have mine. I
have mine right here, so I'll do it.
Okay, yeah, mine are upstairs. So,
but let me.
What my thought does sleeps next to me. I mean, let's talk about Shauna having problems hoarding shit. Like,
all right, let me pull this up. So
that ancient hermetic wisdom, y'all.
Our music choices of the week. So I don't know about you guys, but I mean, if anyone's ever jumped for joy at the most depressing song in the whole world, it was me when Something in the Way came on.
Yeah.
I was just like, I mean, I'm sure if you guys have been watching, I've been like, where's Nirvana? Where's Nirvana? I'm so surprised they haven't. And especially because Shauna actually, Shauna Nirvana, that's what I called her in my, the thing I made for episode 3. But, yeah, she loves Nirvana. She has a Nirvana poster in her room. And so I think that this was a great song to play in that moment of true darkness. Again, they've been trapped in that cabin since the birth and all of that trauma and blood and death. And they're all trapped in there still. They're snowed in and they have no food. They have nothing. They are just trapped in a cabin. And so this song was just so perfect and heart-wrenching for it.
Yeah, it was a moment. And it was just a vibe for sure. And that's what it's about, all these vibrations.
Mm-hmm. So, and then your choice, Mandy. You chose...
Mine was free because I'm like anybody else, Florence and the Machine, like all her music, Cosmic Love, like Dog Days Are Over, like, oh man, Florence changed my life. Okay, she was there for me when no one else was. I love Florence. And then like this is so perfect for Lottie. Sometimes I wonder if I should be medicated or if I'd be better just slightly sedated. A feeling comes so fast and I can't control it. I'm on fire, but I'm trying not to show it. She's sun energy. It picks me up, puts me down, picks me up 100 times a day. Chews me up, spits me out. She's talking about this stuff, and then finally, but I hear the music, I feel the beat, and for a moment when I'm dancing, I'm free, and like this whole them relaxing, dancing, having a drink, them just being free and being on the same vibrations again together. It's just a big thing. I really like that, and obviously we can't just we can't forget about lightning crashes because this whole thing about like lightning, I compared a lot of it to also, I kind of think that Mari's hearing the drips because of the T.S. Eliot Wastelands poem, and there's a part where it's like drip, 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 and it's called the Thunder. Oh shoot, what is it called? All the way at the bottom of our 18-page notes. There's so much, and you guys, this isn't even all the symbolism I had, but I couldn't help it. But okay, so yes, the thunder part. It's so T.S. Eliot in the Wasteland. Super surreal, super dark, super into what we're going in. What the thunder said, and then it's talking about all that stuff, like everything with prison in place and reverberation, a thunder of spring over the mountains, and then we see that with Ty and her sitting there. He who was living is now dead. We who were living are now dying, with a little patience. And it talks about there being rock. There's no water, but there's rock, and the sandy road. And it talks about like being in dead mountains. Let me go to the thing. Where's the dripping part? It's a big poem. So I should have highlighted this. Oh, okay. So and here we go. If there were the sound of water only, not the cicadas and dry grass singing, but the sound of water over a rock, where the hermit thrush sings in the pine trees, drip, drop, drip, drop, drop, drop. But there's no water. So who is the third who walks always beside you when I could? There is always another one walking beside you, gliding wrapped in a brown mantle. There are only you and I together. But when I look ahead with the white road, I do not know whether man or woman, but who is that on the other side of you? So, I mean, that's just a portion of it. But I wanted to say, if you go back and read that, and also some people associate it to the Hamlet, No Fear, which we've talked a little bit about before. But that kind of came to me this week when I was like getting into that deeper, dark stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it. Let's see.
And that lightning the lightning sings, the lightning's everywhere. And there's so much, obviously Zeus. Do we think that I kind of was like, what if Jeff comes in and he's like, Zeus?
I know. I had that thought too, but then I was like, I mean, I guess like in that sort of himbo sense, because Zeus is sort of a himbo,
I think Jeff is like arrows, arrows, because he is like the lover of Shauna, and if we're gonna get into that,
yeah, and he is so dedicated.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll share this with you guys, like, and tell me what your thoughts are, because we've talked about so much Greek mythology, but Mandy and I had been talking about different things that could be Greek inspired, and we even had the idea that the plane crash itself may have been like a Greek inspired type situation. It may have been like, think about this. Zeus is a sky god. He's a god of air, of the heavens. And so the plane that came passing through, was off course. It was not on its normal course. It had changed course for the weather. So we're 600 miles north of Seattle, off of our regular, planned trajectory, and then the plane crashes. Okay. And to be clear, when the plane crashed, the weather wasn't bad. They didn't crash because they were trapped in bad weather. And that's really interesting because 600 miles from Seattle, like, if you're having to change course that much, like, the weather would be pretty bad in Seattle. But I'm telling you from experience, I live in Alaska, and like my family lives in Washington, and the weather is pretty relative. Like, it's pretty consistent just because we're not that terribly far from each other, and the ocean is right there. And so it has a huge effect on the weather, right? But if the sky was blue when the plane crashed, the sky was blue, the sun was shining, there was no bad weather. It was in the middle of nice weather. So the fact that they had to change trajectory in general is kind of strange, because there's no indication that there was bad weather going on in Seattle. But then the fact that they just magically like crashed into this random area without any sort of explanation is just something
the Canadian
kind of like
Bermuda Triangle, you mean?
Yeah, exactly.
It's a real thing.
Yeah, and there is that sort of energy, I mean, the symbol, and what, and we've talked about this before. What if there's an energy vortex going on, like in Oregon, like in, Sedona,
Vibrations
like there's plenty of energy vortex areas, the Bermuda Triangle. Yeah. So
and
if they
magneticism with like
Mhm.
all of the alchemy elements that we're
And
talking
the
about. So,
magnetism, of like,
yeah,
we've suspected that. Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
But so there's this idea that, what if it was like, and then the fact, okay, and this is like the kicker for me, the fact that Shauna is on this plane. Okay, so obviously they're not getting a ton of air traffic over this supposed, this magnetic field, right? And then it just so happens the plane that passes over is carrying a pregnant woman,
Hmm.
and all of the underworld symbolism that ultimately like comes from this. And then the fact that the baby also dies is just sort of like this kind of, it's, with all the Greek mythology that we have going on, we have to kind of wonder if that doesn't even fit into the Greek mythology ideal of it. What if Zeus, had power over the plane?
Trying to have a baby. I don't think it's Zeus though. I think it's more like Loki, or there's also like there's a bunch of tricksters that try to have babies, especially the hair. So that's actually why I think that
Well,
like
Zeus
Shauna,
has tries to
yeah,
have babies with
he's a buddy.
everybody.
Yeah,
He
exactly.
impregnates everyone. He is like the horniest himbo in Greek history. Like he
uh,
disguises himself as a cow. As what if that's a bunch of the animal imagery? Like him coming
yeah,
to
they're talking
them.
about that in the chat.
What's that?
Yeah, let's highlight. They're talking about that in the chat right now. And I'm seeing some of your stuff at the top. I'm sorry. Yeah, see, yes, I definitely saw that imagery and the Ben thing, and like they're definitely getting into that dreaming and shift reality. But a lot of it is also too like they're playing with us. They're not like Misty or like some of the stuff with Shauna saying like I hold Callie close, but sometimes I wonder is she even real? And I was like, yeah,
Well,
yes she's the voice of her. But there's a thousand ways we can go, which is great. But this whole like Akila's mouth, I thought that is the looking glass, but also like part of her character. That's her animal trope. Um,
canon. No, I do. Okay, and I know it sounds a little crazy when I just say it like that, but but no, okay, I'm just saying like if we consider there's like this Dionysian energy, and then
yeah,
okay, so and then the Persephone mythology that's really present. Okay, and so this is where I want to kind of go with this. And I am working on an essay for this, but
and the
it's kind of
14th
hard for me
Philly.
to like present this ideal. So let me just like talk it out with you guys. Okay, so excuse me. Persephone, okay, is the daughter of Demeter and Zeus. Okay, and so when she is like agrees to marry Hades, or what she doesn't really agree, it's essentially Zeus. Hades goes to Zeus and he's like, yo, your daughter's hot, can I marry her? Like brother to brother, can I marry your daughter? She needs to like be a queen. And Zeus is like, yeah, totally, bro, whatever, like keep it in the fam, it's all good. And he's fine with it. And so, but neither one of them go to their sister Demeter, who is her mother. Okay, neither one of them get permission. So when Persephone's out playing in the fields doing her thing, and her mother's off doing her earthly duties and all of this, and Hades comes and he takes Persephone and he takes her down into the cave, and all the naiads are like, or the nymphs and all of that, her nymphs are like, what happened? They don't know what happened to her. And so it was like, that's kind of part of the Eleusinian mysteries, is that there's this contention because Demeter is so heartbroken, and she also feels very betrayed by her brothers and her, Zeus as her like brother, husband, lover, father of her child. She feels very betrayed. Whereas the men feel justified because men do that. They feel like, okay, well, we made the marriage arrangement. We made that decision. It's fine. I said it. I'm her dad, and I said it's fine. But her mother says, no, I did not agree to this, and you didn't ask me. And that's part of like the huge, the search, the battle, the descent to the underworld for her trying to find him. So anyway, so that in mind, that as the bigger picture. Then we have Hermes, who is the messenger god. Hermes in Roman mythology is called Mercury. So then we're considering like the mining stuff that we have going on in the story. So, and I think it was Andy or Yossi said last week, you know, Hermes equaling Mercury equaling the mining. And I was like, oh crap. And so then I started going over and I found out about this substance called red mercury, which is
actually
like
I said that like several streams ago when I introduced hermeticism because it's a basic alchemy. Yeah, it's a basic element of alchemy. Yeah.
Yeah, it's an alchemical.
Yeah.
It's also, it's not even proven to be real. It's sort of like a,
well, red mercury, yeah.
It's yeah. Mercury in general is, but red mercury is sort of like a mystical substance that, you know, is supposedly the Egyptian kings would, you know, when they were buried and mummified, they'd have it under their tongues and their mouth and this kind of stuff. And it's
or the werewolves.
Like, yeah, it's supposedly like gifts, long life, or, you know, whatever. It's some magical substance that now people sort of like, it's sort of like snake oil, right?
Hold
now
on.
people
While
are
you're
like
talking about this, I'm just gonna do a 1, 2, 3. I'll be right back with this.
Oh, go for it. But yeah, so now it's kind of like it's seen as like an unreal substance. It's sort of discredited, whether or not it's, you know, whatever. But my thoughts were going into this was like going back to the Red River when they tried to leave and Lottie has the vision and Van, you know, she finds the Red Creek and she's like, you know, I think we should consider this. And there's something, you know, there. Obviously, the mining and the sort of magnetic pull of that area is something to consider, but there's always going to be like mythology kind of surrounding those energy vortex areas, just like the Bermuda Triangle, and people kind of say, oh, it's like alien energy and that kind of thing. So, or like, you know, the Native Americans, how they look at energy vortexes and how animals will not go there and that kind of thing. So they look at it as like a sacred ground. So yeah, I know it's kind of crazy. It's a little crazy. That Weird Al meme where he's like, it sounds a little crazy, but I'm telling you, it fits. And it may just be not necessarily the Greek gods per se, but it may be like gods of that land that are perchance inspired by the Greek gods. So maybe we're not calling them the same things, but yeah. Oh my God, the Weirwood crown is here. I told you guys, Mandy is the cosplay queen. You don't even know what you're in for. You're muted right now.
Oh, yeah. Can you even see it? Yeah, I actually got recognized at Con of Thrones for my Weirwood cosplay. But the Mercury, red Mercury, flowing through my roots in the tree of life.
Hey, Samuel, excellent point. Adam's last name is Martin. Shauna's lover, Adam. His last name is Martin. I love this. I love this.
And now
you show up, Samael. You always come in. I'm like, Samael's not here. And then out of the blue, like 2 hours and 2 hours, 22 minutes into the stream, this fool shows up and says, is there a Martin in the show? Because that's the god of war. Damn you.
Well, Mars, Martin, but also like Hermes is a god of war too.
No, that's Aries.
No, Hermes is too. Hermes is known for war. His battling. He is. I know. I thought I was like, what? This is more, but yeah, it's true. So, and they're all pretty war. They're all.
I love Hermes. I have like such a, you know, like Hades is my. I'll admit some things to you guys. Hades is my patron, but I also have a very special spot for Hermes. I really like love Hermes. Hermes kind of drew me into Greek mythology. I was like, interesting, you know. I like Hermes a lot.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, he's like the thief. He's the lightning, commerce, sports, athletics, speed, Olympian god of travelers, messengers, and then god of war. Hermes, god of war.
Andy, red mercury is cinnabar, or I think it's like a form of it, or it's like there's alchemy involved with cinnabar.
So okay, remember the alchemy. Okay, so remember when we're talking about the drinking. What are they drinking? What's in that tea latte? So remember in Doomcoming when Nat, who doesn't drink alcohol, and we're about to get into that, but she didn't drink alcohol then either with Coach Ben, and she's like, I got real alcohol. You want to go? Oh, I found it underneath the stairs in a little shed thing where people are saying like, oh, that's maybe the mine or how they get to one of the accents. So I was reading about this aether, I don't even know if this is the right word.
Yeah.
But there's another special element that alchemists try to make, which is like the all-knowing, it's the all-healing. Like you drink it and you're healed. Like it fixes all cancers. It fixes everything, right? But you have to distill alcohol 7 times. So our sevens in that role, but it becomes like this alchemic wisdom healing ocean, like water. The
what
water, it's just like distilling alcohol. Hold on, let me just.
Weren't we talking about this the other day?
Yeah, I think I told you. Yeah, I found it.
And we were saying it was like a parallel to what we were talking about. It was the red mercury is like the dual aspect of the ambrosia, the nectar of the gods. So Zeus and the Olympians, and in Olympus they drink ambrosia, which is this like heavenly like alcoholic beverage that is the best tasting thing. It's the nectar of the gods. Humans have
the
not
elixir for the spirits.
Yeah, humans were never given this gift. Like this is not, it's of the gods, right? We got alcohol, we got mead is what we got, and we also got wine from Dionysus, but ambrosia was kept specifically for the gods. So we were looking at red mercury as like the dark aspect. And if you're a person, Mandy and I, we come from the Game of Thrones fandom world. If you are familiar with that concept, we were looking at it in the way that like weirwood paste is versus shade of the evening. Does that make sense to any of you guys here? Whereas shade of the evening is that dark, the blue, it turns your lips blue, like when Daenerys gets trapped in the House of the Undying and they force her to drink it, and they both give psychedelic responses, induce psychedelic visions and that kind of thing, but they are from very different elements. And shade of the evening comes from like a certain tree. I can't remember what tree, but weirwood paste comes from the weirwoods, and then also there's a little bit of cannibalism mixed in there. But
it's suggested.
But we can digestive, exactly.
It's absorbing souls and energy and histories, and part of them becomes the body. Actually, it's actually the same exact thing, to be honest. All right, George Germ, you're killing us here.
Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, if that makes sense to you guys, where there's sort of this like, because now we can look at it again, looking at the symbol and the area that they're in as like a vortex energy zone into the underworld, then, that makes sense for there to be like this red Mercury river, and then Mercury and Hermes and passing into the underworld, and like the river Styx and Charon, as you had said, and, all of that stuff kind of starts to come together when you really start adding up these things. And I don't know.
It's all, it's like, like I said, it gets adapted. And here's the thing. So that water, the water of life, the breath of life, the soul, the things that make us essentially all the same, they call it the distilled spirits, by the way, like liquor, distilled spirits. And it's the precious of aqua vitae, or in French, I can't speak French, but anyway, water of life. But it's like the whole process is because they wanted to do, so the 4 basic elements, through any combination, substance can be transformed. And that's why I think each character is really like reflective of some elements, and we could look at that. But the turning lead into precious gold is what it's all about. Carl Jung talks about it, this philosophy of gold. So I think
ascending
we're
to
gonna
gold, the gold standard.
Yeah. So the water of life, it's practice. And like when you do this alcohol and distill it like the 7 times, like they believe the transmutation from one thing was another, and that's this whole transformation and transcendence of all of the themes overall. So it's just, and becoming from the metals and the mind, I really think the mind is going to play into part after this more, like after this whole new session that we got of them understanding the self, because they're not in they're in their archetypes, they're in their personal self, they're not even close to touching that unconscious mind. They're starting to open, but they're not, like, all of them are resisting it, and that was clear in this episode, that they are, the only one that isn't resisting it is Nat, because she's connected, but she's been so many years of it,
Well, and Nat's been, she's been in a dark position
the whole time.
So, I mean, even before, like, because based on, like, even when her father was killed, and even just her home life in general, she's always been in that dark position. So I think she's really ready to move into another position, and that's why she's really, like, you see that the interactions between her and Lottie, she's really taking to heart everything that Lottie says, and really trying to absorb it, and even taking on, it's like Lottie's not the one that's guiding the older women who are there, it's Nat. She's like, this is what we're doing, this is what your options are, you need to turn over all your stuff, you need to turn over your phones, I'm not drinking with you guys. She's really stepping into a role, and because I think she's ready to move away from all the death and darkness that she's always sort of been surrounded by.
So Wolfie, Lottie, the schizophrenic role. So Lottie, schizophrenia is also tied to shamanism too, which I am like 100% sure. Like, I don't know. I'm standing all day, all the way with Lottie being shaman, and that's the leader. Fine. And also I want to read, what was it? Oh, talking about the doorways, duality, doorways, passages, frames, and endings. So I love it. Thank you for bringing that up. We talked about that a little bit earlier too. But I feel like, man, do you hear the lightning in my house? Like, there's a huge storm going on where I am right now. Like, it's really it's crazy. Lightning crashes. Actually, you guys, I was gonna play that on the guitar for you, but like, yeah, not today.
We've only been going for 2.5 hours. All right, so
that's what I did in my party. Yeah, let's go into
the fight. What you all came here for.
Oh, so my God, wait. We didn't even mention, like, Misty's thing. Her whole dream. It was a red room from Twin Peaks. I forgot to mention that. And then so I also want to say that there is a book that okay, well, let's talk about Shauna and the baby and the whole you and me kid against the world. So there's a book that is by Raymond Estanita. It's this book is about this black, okay, so it's about like a end of the world zombie book, right? I haven't read it, but I was just reading the reviews. But okay, so it's, oh shoot, I just exited out of it. It's you and me against the world, and it's about, let me pull it up. Will you, 1 second, because I have to read it to you guys, because it totally get me with that black, this stillness, this black stuff inside of you, and I was just like, oh my gosh, this is perfect, because I was Googling it, and it's also from The Damned in 1963, the movie. It's like, oh, you've always known since we were kids, it's been you and me against the world. So I think that was kind of like a little throw in there from the writers, because it's not just book club, it's movie club too. But so there are things, so this is the back of the book, so I'll just read it to you. Oncologist Russell Thorne knew it was true, but he never imagined anything as horrifying as a virus. An infection has turned humanity into creatures of vicious insanity. Sound familiar? The survivors call them creepers, but by day they hunt humans, and by night they burrow underground to await their daybreak from their earthen graves. The rescues by a group of young survivors is just the beginning of a nightmarish journey to find the last safe place on Earth. It's a road where they will discover limits of their own humanity and the cost of love, loyalty, and hope. Time is running out, however, and the creepers are evolving and gaining intelligence. Bullets alone will not serve the survivors, but they have to figure out how to save and give them a chance for one more tomorrow or one more awakening and dawn. So I felt like there was a lot of symbolism and connection with that just alone, because you're seeing they're going off, they're going underground, they have to go with this whole thing, and that whole demon, and just the depths of this whole show is creepy like that. So, but yeah. And oh wait, okay, so and then Raymond, this is another thing. Raymond is Esposito is he has a dog. One of his okay, so he's the novel The Demon, and he has a dog named Zeus. Since we were talking about animals, and I thought that was like so perfect for this episode. So I was like, yes, and I think definitely the writers threw that in there 100% because like how the dog named Zeus, that they're animal lovers,
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously, with how much animal pairing they're doing with
Yeah.
everyone, so that's really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I like that. I think that's
Yeah, just
really
fun,
great.
just a little fun.
Yeah, just to keep it present in our minds.
Citizen Detectives follow up.
Mm-hmm. So, sorry, Wolfie,
You and me against the world, babe.
I'm keeping an eye on the chat. I was trying to
No, it's
I'm trying to keep up with what you're saying, Wolfie. Anyhow, so Shauna, she's gone through it. Like we talked about it a little bit earlier in the chat, but I want to emphasize how important it is that the way she was holding on to the baby. Okay, now I want to talk about this. Shauna had those visions during her birth. She went essentially unconscious and she had a bunch of visions, and the visions were both like horrific and beautiful because she had those tender moments with her baby where it was just the two of them, and she, that feeling of breastfeeding your child, especially after you've been struggling, is just so like there's just such a feeling with it, and it's indescribable. And just that connection you make with your baby and just all of it. And so she had these incredible moments of tenderness that, of course, she does not want to let go of. That's all she had with her baby. That is all that she had, were those few moments in her, unconscious state where she was visualizing just being close with her live baby. And so nothing's going to take that away from her. However, if you intermix the fact that she was also having these horrific visions of Lottie nursing her baby, and then also of the other girls cannibalizing her baby, that whole dream sequence where she wakes up and the baby's gone and she's like, where is it? She's stumbling out there, she sees the sacrifices, and then she sees all the girls eating her baby who's been ripped apart. And we as viewers can differentiate. We can say, oh, this is just her dream sequence, this is just everything she's going through, and she's just sort of projecting, right? But in Shauna's mind, here's the thing. Her moments with the baby were so incredibly precious to her that she can't let go of those. And she cannot tell herself that wasn't real, that was just a vision. Because then she has to let go of those moments with her baby. But on the same note, when she tells herself those were just visions, that wasn't real, about the girls cannibalizing her child, there's no differentiation. If she convinces herself that was just a dream, that wasn't real, about the girls cannibalizing her baby, then she also ultimately has to face the fact that her moments, her tender, precious moments she had with her baby, were also not real. They were just a dream. And with all of the incredible trauma that she is going through, the very last thing she is going to do is let go of something so precious and beautiful and wonderful that she has, because that's all she has. Sorry, I'm like getting choked up, but it's all that she has, and she's lost so much, and so she just can't differentiate those two things. She can't say like that wasn't real and this was real. It's either it was all real or it was all fake, and she's just not in a place where she can let go. And then when this moment right here where they're cleaning up the bed, finally, they have fresh air in there and that kind of thing, and she sees that the blanket is still there and it's covered with blood, and that's what she was giving birth on. Oh God. And so she takes it and she throws it in the fire. But I want to also, because we've been talking so much about Jackie and Persephone and that sort of symbolism and that kind of thing, when Jackie, in Doomcoming, when Jackie loses her virginity and she bleeds, and her and Travis are having sex upstairs in the cabin, and where the bed is almost like exactly where Cabin Daddy was when they found that his dead skeleton. So, and he's right there where all the symbols are on the floor. So my thought is Jackie may have, when she lost her virginity and bled, she bled on the symbol. Just like when Shauna has her baby and the blanket's underneath her and she's bleeding on the symbol, and they both lose their lives. So it's kind of interesting.
Yeah, but like, so the Persephone thing, like, first off, like, her getting with, so she had a baby from mixed with Jupiter too, like, to death. But also they talk about this twice born God stuff, and then the elemental of the womb. Okay, where is it? Every woman gives birth astride a grave and brings forth new life simultaneously. And like all things born must die and creates the death. And so and she has a couple of kids, but like in the Zagreus, like we talked, but they have so this mother, and they talk about her, she's no virginal goddess, like she wasn't always. And he goes, but I think that they also, like Carl Jung, when he talks about being reborn into the mother of the womb, and then that's when you get into the shadow, like you have to be reborn out of the dirt and into the darkness. And there's just like, and you die, you literally, it's about death, being born into the dark. So this is what's happening, and it's just so symbolic beyond just her losing her baby, but it's beyond what we see. And that's, everything is like, it's stuff that you don't even know that was in there. And it's so much.
It's true. It's just,
and she ends up saving her daughter at the end, and her daughter ends up being like the one with Zeus, who's half light, half dark. I don't know. I see that in Kelly sometimes. I didn't really like her so much, but like I kind of am interested to see where Kelly's going to end up. And they're Kali, the goddess Kali, or Kali, like the Hindu goddess, like evil, vicious thing, like, that, and she's one of the daughters of a lying god. That was the one I was talking about earlier. I can't remember though.
Well, she's not necessarily evil. Kali's not evil.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Yeah, you're right. Please forgive me on that.
No. She's just like she has an angry aspect.
Blood and like she's that cannibalistic side.
No,
yeah,
and
like
then this is something that's really like incredible, because Kali, she does have that like anger aspect. However, she's also like a creation mother goddess, but like we see that too with the Greek goddesses. So like Demeter and even Persephone have these angry aspects. They're called Brimo, which is like this I think it's Brimo's it's saved for,
and there's like the dream goddesses too. So the great and loving primordial mother. But somebody else.
Where are you, Brimo?
I gotta find it. You guys, I will have it for you next week. I am so sorry. I'm really not on my game today.
So in ancient Greek religion and myth, the epithet Brimo may be applied to any of several goddesses with an inexorable, dreaded, or vengeful aspect that is linked to the land of the dead. Hecate, Persephone, Demeter, Arrhenius, the angry bereft Demeter, or Cybele. And Cybele is Cybele is the moon. Sorry, I was going to say Ceres is the Roman equivalent of Demeter. But anyways, Cybele is the moon. So, and I love that because the moon does get angry. So now, okay, so we're here. Let's do this. Let's jump into the Brimo aspects. Step right up, folks. We're here for the event you've all been waiting for. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, gather around for the fight of the century. In this corner, it's the Butcher of BC, Shauna the Mama Shipman. And in this corner, casting her lots and taking names, it's Charlotte, the Queen Bee Matthews.
Well, it's more of a sacrifice. She's the sacrificial lamb right here. I'm sorry. Let's be realistic.
And caught in the middle of all this buzz is Fisty Misty motherfucking Quigley. And she's going to learn Shauna is in no mood today. So yeah, we had to do that. Okay. So the fight was crazy, very emotionally fueled. I have a lot
and the fire behind Shauna, like the whole fire scene, like
that's what I'm saying. That's her angry.
I wanted to hug her.
That's her
so
Demeter
much.
Arenas. Like
I just wanted to
Primo.
Lisa her, and when she was crying for Jack, I just wanted to hug her so much. And I hate Shauna. Like
I love her.
I think drives me insane.
Shauna drives everyone insane except for me. I feel like, I'm the only one who understands her on a soul level.
No, I understand her. I just like, come on, girl, come on.
So I mean,
chaos.
Has anyone ever suffered
chaos?
Has anyone ever suffered more than Shauna? Come on, all right. This girl has suffered more than Jesus Christ. No, I'm just kidding.
Okay, the first rule of Fight Club.
Yeah, the first rule of Fight Club is we don't know. It's just fight in the cabin. Blood goes on the symbol.
But Lottie, that take Travis to the room. Like, ooh, I was like, what's going on here? Mm-hmm. I didn't know what was happening, but just she's the bear, and there's like bear symbolism in ancient cultures. There's like the whole thing where they worship the bear and dance, and like especially in French, the Basque, where Lottie's speaking French, the Basque Nation, where it's a huge, worshiper of the bear, and Shauna, like she just lies. She doesn't even hit Shauna back. She just goes, kill me. And do we think that this is actually Lottie dying here in this actual moment, that she's dying, or is she just like near death? Even still, that's going to awaken her because she's already awoken on that level. Yeah. But I actually, the more I thought about it, I did feel it as a literal death. As her shamanistic journey, she's got to die again, and now she's going to actually heal other people, because that's the difference between the crazy, schizophrenic, whether you think you are, the black, dark shaman, there's a name for it. Somebody help me out here. I can't remember. There's a dark, like a dark mage or something, but that's part of it. And I think that she's going to go there, and then she's going to, she has to help heal other people. And we've talked about this before, that she has more of an archetype image of herself than actually of her wanting to fit what she's supposed to be, instead of her actually helping and doing the work for other people. Like, even right now, she's suggestive to all of them, but they're doing everyone has to do their inner work themselves, but I feel like Nat is more guiding again. So, but yeah, she definitely dies.
Nat was fantastic in this scene, because she, above anyone else, was absolutely horrified at the whole thing. She was like visually distressed by the whole interaction, the whole fight. She was the one that was like, no, this is not good, and it's so funny because Nat is the bad girl. She's the the bad kid. She's the like Thais is always talking crap to her, you smell like a wino, yada yada, but really, like, Nat really is the most sensitive, the most besides Lottie, she's the most attuned. She sees consequences, for things, because she's experienced it on, a very deep level. Yeah, for me, like, Lottie accepting the beating was I think you're right. This is like an ego death for her, because my thought was she is being so receptive, and that's your feminine aspect. Okay. It's like, male and female, there's positive, there's negative. Men are they produce, women receive. Okay, women are the vessel. And so for me in this scene, Lottie was the vessel. She was a martyr. She said, this is for the greater good, and it was in a form an ego death, because she could surrender herself to Shauna and trust that, you know, this was the better thing, you know, and whatever came of it was going to was meant to be. But I just thought it was really beautiful of her to offer herself as like as the vessel, as sort of the goddess, because she's stepping into that goddess position right there, because that's what the goddess ultimately always does. You're always receptive, you always receive. It's the water, it's the cup of life, it's the chalice well, you know, all of those things that are ultimately divine feminism, where, you know, you're a goddess figure. So for me, that was what she was doing here. And, you know, Shauna really, she did need to release. And I think like her position as the butcher is so important to the group as a whole, that, you know, and that's not something that Lottie can replicate herself. So she just said, you know, you need to get this out. And I
She's
honestly
always
don't.
giving Lottie though, like she's always giving Lottie the tools and the knife and things like that too. And then the knife is like the knife and the light, or the shaman wheel, the sun, the knife and the sun and the healing wheel are tools of the shaman. Like
Yeah.
that's like old as ancient time tools. So that's, you know, the symbolism there. And like the thing about this too is I really sometimes also feel like maybe Lottie could represent Hades too, because Hades is like kill me, or die, repeat, or you know, like yeah, they it's just killing Hades. You could never do it. It's kill, die, repeat, kill, die, repeat.
Yeah, it's
She
death,
has to kill other
life, death, and
people.
rebirth. The
Yeah,
ultimate cycle, life, death, and rebirth. It's a three-part, you know, cycle. Um,
but I
I
feel
think
like
like
Lottie might even die more than like she might just constantly be doing that, because that's what shamans do, is they'll go back and forth all the time, and it's always dying and dying. Like it's a constant journey throughout your whole life, and then that's what, you know, Hermeticism and Jung talks about too.
well, and I
But
think, you know, when she cuts her hand and makes the sacrifice and she's like, can this just be enough? Like, I think she's you
she's
know,
pick
she's
girl.
had ego deaths, and she's had multiple ego deaths, because imagine the you know, when they are rescued and she comes back, and then her father puts her through all of that treatment, saying, you know, you're a crazy person and all this. So she has to set aside everything that she's experienced in order to surrender to this like terrible treatment, this brainwashing that they're doing to her, you know, this electroshock therapy, all this madness that they put her through, is just an act of surrender. And she is a very like she is a submissive person in that regard. It would be nice to see Lottie stand up and say, you know, put her foot down about something or another.
Well, she
You know,
does. She says, "Oh, let's not remind everyone that you had sex with your cousin. You lost your virginity to your cousin."
but
Like
that's when she's
she's
still
sassy,
medicated. That's when she still has medication.
but
So
this is
that's
also
like,
like her sassy this episode that we saw her bringing back out again a little.
well, and I also think like that's her male aspect too, I guess. Her because we've seen that like when she was with the therapist and she says it has to stop. You know, her male energy is very powerful, but her male energy, it's like she says to Ty, you don't, you know, it doesn't want to be suppressed. Her feminine energy, her receptive, her submissive nature, her, you know, ability to be the vessel is very strong with her, but her male aspect, she really suppresses that, you know, the way she's telling Ty or telling the other girls, like, you can't suppress these parts of yourself. She does in a sense.
Well,
So
and then that's like the Hermes, like that's the whole thing, and that's the two six and the anime and animus, and you know this understanding that we have both of those parts, and when you're in your black consciousness. Okay, so in your consciousness, your God or your ego or your psyche always comes as the same sex, but like your black one is kind of always a different opposite sex that you're telling you that you have to accept that part of you. And, you know, it's all about like the trans fluidity and transformation and trans everything, transcendent, trans gloria, access mundi, like it's everywhere, you
yeah.
know, and and right now it's a movement. It's a movement of a people, of a person, of an understanding, of not defining. And that's where we are in life in this whole, what we call it. So I mean, you know the buzz.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, there was a lot going on in this fight. I don't think, there's that moment like after the fight where Shauna's like, Lottie, and then she kind of rolls her eyes before she walks outside. Like, I don't think she's released all of the anger. I still really feel like we are going to get such a dark side of Shauna, really seeing something come out. However, on that same note, we did have that scene of her going back into the meat shed and trying to talk to Jackie. And I feel like, going back to the idea where this may be the divide between, factions, especially considering like Shauna's reaction to the blanket that had the baby blanket that had the symbol on it, all of these things where, and like her reaction to Lottie, like praying around her and that kind of thing when she was giving birth. I think Shauna, now that she's lost the baby, is really going to reject all of that. Nope. However, I think she is going to try and like deify Jackie, and Jackie's death and what Jackie has done for all of them. Without Jackie, we'd all be dead. We ate her body. She gave us life. And, and Shauna's gonna kind of like pray to Jackie, is my opinion.
Like
That's
she's
gonna be
gonna
her
embody
shrine.
her. Yeah, and like her cannibalism of Jackie is what's gonna come out. And also, like, let's look at her shirt, because I noticed the soul butterfly, like the cloth myth, the Hades and Persephone, the moth and butterfly shirts. Like it's a pierced butterfly, soul catchers, referred to as the butterfly ball by Zagreus, or like there's a lot to it. Is more than that. It's like the mythological nymph, your psyche in philosophy, right there. So that's another thing too. And I was rewatching the last episodes of the season 1, and you see her with this shirt, and then in the future you see her with a butterfly with a circle around it. It's just one. Right now there's like a bunch of them on her, and it says something in French too. I don't remember, but something. Yeah.
This was Jackie's old shirt here. So like her putting it on after she has that really like
Persephone,
that moment. Yeah, I'm telling you, Jackie is Persephone and Shauna is Demeter, and she is like mourning her daughter. And then the baby is like, Demeter is the earth mother, so she's making the children. Persephone is not, a life maker. She spends half of her life in the underworld. So like this baby that comes to her via, the earth mother goddess kind of thing is like just this beautiful thing between the two of them. But yeah, I do think Luna,
Persephone turns into butterflies, right?
She's going to make her a goddess, in her mind. I mean, it's the same as the wilderness being a god, a god figure, or the power of that place, like Lottie says, to them. It's something tangible for them to pray to, something that feels powerful, something that feels life-giving. And Andy, why is there so much moss in the meat shed? That's a really great question, because it's winter, it's snowy, it's all of that stuff you would think would be covered up or sort of like reduced back or die off. But I think that is another indication of like, Persephone is a springtime goddess, flowers and life, and
she turns into butterflies, right?
Exactly. And so all this, springtime imagery in that in the meat shed where Jackie's, where Jackie and Shauna had their sort of weird thing going on, this undead life, death, rebirth sort of conversing, they were all three there. Shauna was still pregnant with the baby. So there's life, death, rebirth going on in just that, in the meat shed. And so
I think look at that, like the rabbit, how everyone thought that Jackie was the rabbit, and now it's obvious that Shauna is now, but like we kind of had that whole thing, and like Jackie has embodied Shauna, and that is the whole physical body that she's becoming into and growing into of her soul, of
Mhm.
like her psyche. And the goddess Psyche, I think there's a lot of stuff there too. And like all of this soul stuff is the breath, of life. And it's a lot of psychological stuff and in the history of it as well. If we were looking at Jung and like
Mhm.
the myth of Psyche. So
Yeah.
what is
There's
ourself? Who is
yeah.
ourself? What can we do? Eros, which I think that like, she's Psyche, Eros is Jeff, or Psyche wanted to be Venus, and Venus is Shauna. Like, I mean, Venus is Jackie. So
Mhm.
it's, yeah,
Yeah.
roll with it.
One more thing I really wanted to point out to you guys. Well, first of all, we should talk a little bit about how Melissa and Jen were just like quick to be like, yeah, we'll cannibalize
Let's eat
Crystal's
her.
body, no problem.
Right.
But
It would be a
but
waste if not. I mean, like, I'm a firm believer in like, if you kill something, if you kill an animal, you use it all. Like, don't waste parts, don't do stuff, don't waste things in life. And I do it, fixer upper. I like to, embody if I can fix something that's broke, I can fix me, because at this point, we're really broken. Yes, Shauna, we are. And there's something I can't fix, and I'm broken, she says.
okay, so one thing I did want to share with you guys too about okay, so while we're on the note of all the Greek mythology, and then so Demeter and Persephone and the Eleusinian mysteries, okay? So as we talked about before, they had two big festivals a year, twice a year. These were very, like, the Eleusinian mysteries were very significant. They were probably the biggest religious festivals that were in Greece for millennia. They were very significant. So and it's surrounded with Demeter and Persephone. And so we talked about this briefly. There's two festivals per year. One was for the general masses, and one was for female initiates only. So,
or one-on-one.
to learn the mysteries. And it's like any other mystery religion. These are guarded secrets that were passed down. And when the Catholic Church came in and took over everything, they destroyed all records of the ritual. So we just have, kind of what we have, like, from word of mouth passed down. So but the ritual itself, the festival itself, is surrounded, it's a 3-part mystery, which is about the descent, the search, and the ascent. And it's all about traveling to the underworld, searching for your daughter who's been taken to the underworld. So for me, I really feel like the for the general masses, it's a way to accept death. If you have a child who's died, somebody close in your family who's died, it's a ritual to help you accept death and like the safety of the underworld, right? Or come into comfort with that yourself. Now, at Eleusis, I believe is what it's called, where they held these festivals, they had priestesses of Demeter and Persephone that lived there at the festival grounds. And what I found to be really interesting is that these goddesses, or these priestesses, excuse me, were called the Melissae, spelled exactly like Melissa. And there's even one who supposedly, there's like the myth of one who started it. Her name was Melissa, and she discovered the healing powers of honey and brought mead to people. And she was like, brought like the importance of honey, basically. And so the Melissae were actually priestesses of the bee. And so Demeter is ultimately intertwined with bee mythology and honey mythology, which I think is so fantastic because the freaking show is called Yellowjackets. So it's all about like bees and all of that. So anyways, I just loved it. I thought it was really beautiful.
And getting
Obviously,
the gold.
What's
getting
that?
the gold, the honey, the gold.
Exactly.
The elixir.
And then the fact that we have one of these girls is named Melissa. And I just thought that was really interesting. And Melissa's actually, and I do want to point out about Melissa. So when they are having the prayer circle, when Shauna, right before the fight starts, and Shauna comes back into the cabin and they're sitting around the fire having the prayer circle. There are two people sitting outside of the prayer circle not participating. One is Javi and one is Melissa. So my kind of thought, and that doesn't necessarily mean, oh, Melissa doesn't believe in, because she's made several comments throughout the episode about the wilderness and being respectful to the wilderness. However, I think like that ultimately, if this is a divide in factions and, it's like Shauna's like, no, I am not down with like Lottie's wilderness stuff. And I think that's what happened to my baby. And she's like, no, I don't want any part of this. I kind of feel like Melissa might go with her. This might be her buddy, her little JV. So that's my 2 cents, my prediction. Keep an eye out for it, but I feel like Melissa and Shauna are going to be friends. I think you're muted. So.
I love it, Andy. You're always killing it with the comments. Like, Andy, I feel like you and I are vibrationally together. I really do. Like, ever since your first comment, I've loved you. So, Andy,
yes,
again, you're killing it.
Andy
with the
gets comments of the day with this one. Oh my God, you win.
And also about like the lowering entropy before, and there's a lot here. Don't you guys love this show? Isn't it so exciting? Like, it really is. We're all connected, and like here, let's talk about the connection, the girls again, because we're talking about how Shauna gets beat up at the vet, but let's talk about the girls dancing and coming together, and at the end, they're all just kind of like. I feel like we got to wrap this up. Oh, thanks, Sandy. Because we're going forever, but it's all good.
Yeah, we do need to wrap it up.
Yeah. But I think that, like, okay, so they're coming. Lottie doesn't want to be, like, she's like, I think you guys got to go home. You need to go. Mm-hmm. But they're like, Lottie, just stop driving, which is symbolic because doesn't Lottie say, hey, let Charlotte drive? I'm sorry, let Lisa drive to Nat before, and now here Lisa is knocking, Charlotte, are you there? Are you there? Mm-hmm. And it's a flip, and finally Nat's leading the discussion. And in the beginning we have this beautiful, so let's go way back to the beginning and we'll come back, because I really want to say that we have this beautiful, vulnerable moment from Nat. She's taking you to the dark. She's River Stick, baby. She's Sharon, and she's sharing. Mm-hmm. Anyway, that was geeky. But
no, I love it.
So Nat, like, she really does. She confesses that, hey, we've been putting in these walls up, and I think that at the end of the show, it's going to go back to that box, and Missy's going to close it. She's going to admit it, and Missy's kind of one of the harder, most crazy, because she's psycho. Mm-hmm. But I love her. But they finally are coming down because it's what I needed, and you all needed it too. And we brought some dark shit back from that place, and now maybe we can deal. So she's taking the lead in the dark, helping them guide through their shadow underworld. Hades, Hermes' favorite. But it's a reflection, and then, again, it goes from Lottie saying, hey, it stopped snowing, to it starts snowing again when they're dancing, the sun stuff in their dances that we were talking about.
Yeah.
And then, like, them together is just the whole group. She says, okay, well, let's cut the bullshit. Like, we all know and see through that. But, like, let's focus on the now. Tell me what you did. And they're all just kind of like, okay, well, let's just be here now together. And I think that's, a little bit of all they need. But, again, they're all drinking, but Nat doesn't drink.
Mm-hmm. There was some beautiful symbolism there with the idea of like when they're dancing around the fire. Okay, so we have the sun, the fire, and then we have the moon. They're in the night and they're dancing and they're all, being free. And then, like you said, the air with Misty, where she's tra-la-la, frolicking and having a good time. But then we also get the snow, which is, symbolic of their time in the wilderness and of the baby's birth and all of that. So there was so much imagery going on in that scene. It was awesome because we had like the sun for Lottie. We have the darkness for Nat. We have, the air and all of this stuff. I just loved it. It was a beautiful scene of all of them, dancing
It was
together and coming together, and like
the
Van and
reunion we
Ty.
wanted.
Yeah,
The real
we've
reunion.
all been waiting for this for 2 whole seasons. So, and then this, and like even all the Lottie Nat shippers and all of this, they were dancing together and sort of like in this beautiful divine rotation, and then like Van and Ty and their sort of romance rekindling, and then like Misty and Shauna, which are just the two weirdos who are, sort of refusing to face their demons. And so it's just kind of like all this beautiful, all of it, just all of it. It was just beautiful. So it was beautiful.
And the thing is, though, is like that, how much do you remember? And they're talking about the cognitive responses. And all of the responses to that were like so archetypal characters for what we've compared their archetypes to. I was just
lost
like,
my
come
goat,
on,
but I found him again.
or Sean saying, oh yeah, I'm okay with leaving it locked down, and Ty saying, oh whatever, let's and Van saying like, don't just bring that up randomly, like it's not, it is a big deal. But like all these forces are coming again, forces of the earth, and it was just awesome, man. I really enjoyed it. And I think that we're seeing that thing of calling, and what is phone call a symbolism of dreams, that you need to listen, you need to wake up. When you call someone else, you're kind of like, not, there's a lot to it, but like they're getting their callings, like, and then we get the call for Shauna, the real one. So we had a call for Misty, like that was fake, calling out, wanting that. The Lips phone and the Garfield phone.
Someone pointed out also that we shouldn't miss the Lips phone was the same phone she had in the Play-Doh scene where they said, oh, you did anal with Robbie Delgado or whatever. It's her same old phone that she has.
So where did you do it?
Yeah.
But and that red room for Twin Peaks is like, it's a room that like symbolize this whole darker, like,
isn't it like the inner like psyche or something like that? I haven't watched
it. It is.
Yeah.
It's like, it's kind of the similar vibe with the underworld and the inner psyche, and it's like a place where evil resides and known to have existed from the 1800s, behind literal curtains. And that's her curtain call. She's all an act. Her evil hides behind her curtains. And it's where most of the bad things which happen in Twin Peaks itself and feed off the misery they cause.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And there's there were
I need to watch Twin Peaks. There's apparently a lot of
some of the gods and things too. Like there's the misery of the things that were born in the underworld. So we can also relate all the characters to that. And someone said all the planets. I mean, again, it's the same archetypes from like Hermeticism, the triangle, that are able to reflect. Yeah, it is so full.
Thank you, Roseanne.
This is me every day. Like, honestly, I haven't slept because I've been like, and I have 30 pages of notes, and I'm not even talking about it.
No, we're not just talking about the stream. Like, Mandy keeps adding me to all these documents, and I'm like, like, no. I mean, we both have like a million different ideas for essays and notes and just all of it from different like perspectives and that kind of thing, and it's all so much fun. It's all so crazy.
But let's say that this is it. That's the trickster energy, the horn gods. All of the animals are horned. All of them have kind of a trickster in the animalistic, in the Native Americans, like I said, the coyote versus the wings, which I feel like, the clown, the trickster and the clown. And we're getting a lot of that with Misty, and we're getting a lot of this stuff. And I do actually want to tell you guys something weird that happened to me, because like I've been going through an awakening myself. And I think I've been sharing it, and this show has literally led me to an awakening. Thank you, universe. and I I've been diving deep into that Hermeticism and ancient sacred geometry and stuff. But Andy was talking about the frogs. Listen, okay, I'm a Gemini. My birthday's actually like next week. Well, May 23rd. But I'm a Taurus Gemini. But so right now, our pool, we drained it, like draining fucking hell. And it's been raining here every day. We're trying to resurface it, repaint it. I'm trying to renew it, right? My pool is full of frogs right now, like full of toad frogs,
That's
which,
crazy.
God, I hope I'm not pregnant. It's a symbol of fertility. But no, I shouldn't be. But anyway, but it also like symbolizes wealth, money transition, a new awakening. The frog's been croaking all night, singing, choirs. But I just want to share that because it's been like in my whole transition and awakening, that is another symbolism, and it means that you're going through a whole new awakening because frogs do represent birth, redeath, the transmutation, the forming, because they go from tadpoles and they totally transform. So it like this is seeking into my everyday life and everything I see. And yes, your head hurts. This is a lifestyle now. Like honestly, like let's get the buzz going. But this is a lifestyle, and I yeah, it's great.
It is. It really is. Yeah, this show, I would say for me, I went through something similar when I was watching Raised by Wolves. So if you guys have been a follower of the channel for a while, you'll probably see some of my old Raised by Wolves stuff that's similar. But yeah, I mean, that's what I love about covering these shows, and that's how I choose these shows too to cover, because it's like what's making you think. It's not just about watching a show, it's about diving deeper, really analyzing symbolism, and find, like, I love to find the old gods and that kind of thing, and bring their myths to, like, I consider myself a myth keeper, where I like to bring these myths that may have otherwise been forgotten or suppressed, or, by the patriarchy or what have you.
The higher pursuit of
nobody
knowledge.
Wants to hear that word, but yeah, but like when you
I'm your daddy. I'm the daddy. I'm definitely the male element of this duo right here.
Oh yeah. But yeah, so I mean, it's just so wonderful. I'm so glad that there are writers and other people that are, interested in hearing what we have to say and coming back here every week. We appreciate.
We're starting our own cult here, like let's roll with it. But like that's another thing too, is like the goddess, the ones that made it to the underworld, the gods of like death. It's so symbolic here, and like when you're putting all the mythology specifically to those gods of like that represent death or in that cycle, and it's just so perfect. And
well, like when I was covering servants,
and the psyche,
I used to say, during my servant live streams, I said, well, we're here at church, the Church of the Lesser Saints, and so here we're just at Church of the old, we're at the Eleusinian mysteries
of Hermetic wisdom.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But anyways, you guys, well, we should get going. We've got to go be moms and do things. So anyways, thank you all so much for being here. We will be back next week to cover episode 8. And I'm also doing some extra special stuff for episode 8 on the Antler Queen, Kelly's channel. So if you guys are not subscribed to the Antler Queens, then definitely go and hit subscribe. She's almost at 1,000 subscribers now, and that's like a big mile marker for YouTube creators. So if you're not subscribed, definitely go subscribe from all your different
alter egos.
Yeah, all your channels. We all know you have 7. More than one.
I have 7. And like some I don't even look at anymore. Some of them I've suppressed to the back of my consciousness, like the light lit bringer.
Don't we all?
But anyway, yeah, so we are celebrating my birthday next week. So
yeah. So bring your party hats, bring your weirwood crowns, and your
you guys want to kill me?
Your bald caps. Your bald caps. Those are very. But yeah, be here next week, and we will be discussing the next episode. So yeah, thank you all for being here. We had an awesome time, and we will see you later.
Hey, Jackie.
Oh shit! I didn't do Jackie.
Come on.
You know what? I failed.
We gotta turn into butterflies here, okay? You are denying us the rebirth butterfly person.
That was more dragon. I don't know. Maybe more chicken.
Oh wait, like Shauna's first baby dream? Okay.
Oh no. Okay, we gotta go. Bye guys. Caligula out.
Jackie out.
Hold on, click the button. Here we are.